Okay, so today I'm going to be doing episode 4 of my little permadeath bot gauntlet on chess.com where I go through every single bot. And there are some complications that I discovered with this, but I'll get to that in a second. The first thing I wanted to do, actually stupidly, because of how much I mock the whole webcam, facecam culture. Of course, I don't do facecam, but I said at the beginning of each of these, if I have time, I didn't have time last week because I only did it for like an hour. But for here, I'm going to do like a little food review. So like whatever I was going to eat anyway. So like this is Domino's, like whatever that we sometimes settle for eating. So I don't know how I'm going to show it because I have the chessboard there already with our position from last time, but whatever. This is the living vicariously stupid thing. So like we have this, and then we have, I guess I didn't think about how I would actually show it. Like this is like a little Domino's pizza, and of course we have the glove too, so we'll have to account for that. I'll use like a tissue to do it. So yeah, I've never been too big a fan of Domino's. This is just like a regular, basic Domino's piece of cheese pizza. And I kind of forced myself to not even eat before this just to sort of save it for this momentous occasion. Like the first couple times we reviewed like a little glass of liquor, like Bailey's mint and then Bailey's strawberry. So I'm not a big fan of Domino's, and the reason why, this is something I always avoided doing too. Even when I would do those long streams, I would hate to do it. I would hate to eat on stream. I would always take a break and do it like that. But I've always been a fan of Pizza Hut, and I've always hated Domino's. And the reason why is mainly because I guess I should have just moved the chessboard and done it after, but whatever. Just this is what webcam facecam culture is about. But no, Pizza Hut is signature for sort of their deep dish style and their thicker crust, right? They're kind of thicker, juicier. Look how thin this shit is, right? This is like eating fucking a piece of paper or something. I don't know how people like this. The reason why I've gotten it more in the last couple years, just because I eat one of two things. Either I eat like frozen packets that you sort of warm in the microwave, stuff like that, or I'll eat like fast food or outside food that I get, right? So those are like the two exclusive things because I don't cook or do anything like that. And so the point is that I've settled for eating Domino's in the last couple of years only because it's cheaper. So even as I'm doing it, I'm acknowledging I'm not doing it because it's good. I'm doing it because it's less expensive. Pizza Hut is a bit expensive, but I've always liked that since I was a kid. Pizza Hut is much better, and that's one of the telltale reasons. This is sort of thin. It's sort of just bland. The slices are small, even though you could say the pie for pie size might be the same. The slices themselves always feel kind of tiny and underwhelming, and they're certainly, again, they're very thin. But that element isn't very filling or anything like that. We'll start by doing this, and then we have these little garlic. Let me keep going through this, but the overall intro is that last time was a very short episode. It was only an hour, although I mean, still for one single bot, seems like it's not too bad. But we were playing this Coach Danny as we're going through every single bot on here. The only ones I'm skipping are the ones at the top because that's like some special monthly category that they keep doing, like the generations or whatever, right? But the reason why that's relevant is because, shit, I almost ate some of my tissue. The reason why that's relevant is because there's one problem with that, is that I was showing that, like, okay, it could go into a second episode if it needs to, and even more than that, because, like, the point is it's correspondence, and I'm trying to make it as instructive as possible, and stuff like that, right? So the problem is that it actually deleted the game, and it didn't let me continue it, so I had to recreate the position, and then say, like, finish playing against the bot. But the one thing that you miss out there then is the fact that you miss out on their commentary, right? It doesn't show you that part. So, and I don't think that has anything to do with premium or whatever. So I could do one of two things. I could say, oh, I have to do it within the one particular episode, which isn't fair at all. Or I would just have to miss out on their commentary. Or like I could replay it, but then I could replay it with the commentary at the end once I've already done it. Right, so that was a rule that I was saying should be there because it's not fair when, like last time I only had an hour for that session. So if I was playing some Ding Liren or somebody, how would I be able to, how would I do that if I had to do it in one sitting? That's not fair, right? That's not what the essence of this challenge is about. So ultimately, what I'm going to do is, um, what I'm going to ultimately do is, I guess I'll have to do it like this because I can't figure out another way to do it. But part of the fun is to see their commentary. So I don't know, because if we go through this and then we, like we move a couple moves and I'm going super instructive and calculating and taking my time and doing it kind of like that's been how been trying to do it, which is good. The point is it's instructive, and we will have to go through some very tough bots, later on. So it might seem unnecessary now, right? But eventually, it's going to be very pertinent and justified because you'll be playing some much tougher bots along the way, like grandmasters and stuff. So this is a little Parmesan red bite thing. We'll give a review of this. So yeah, Domino's Pizza gets like a. And of course, in fairness, there are multiple kinds. But yeah, if you're gonna do webcam, I may as well make a total mockery of it like it is. This is literally MasterChef. If you're going to do this, right, then you're going to be in a position where I'm just doing like the base one. Obviously, there are other kinds that they have, but that only gets like maybe a 2-star. The only good thing about it is that it's cheap. Right, otherwise it would be really 1-star. I've never liked it. Like Little Caesars is pretty bad too. So this thing is you can have the whole thing in one bite, actually. Right? This isn't bad. I haven't had these too many times. I've obviously had the pizza many times before, unfortunately. This is kind of it's not bad. It's kind of got a light flavor to it. This is like my movie review stuff coming out too. Like I want to do these little, unboxing reviews if I get something. Like I may as well fit this into the one time I use a webcam in a week, which is only usually when I play chess. I was doing it a few other times before, just to I was doing it a few times before just to use the web, like to do a Rubik's Cube or to do all these other kind of weird things too, other formats. Yeah, that gets maybe like a 3-star. It's decent. I don't know. I have to get better at doing the review if I'm gonna do this. But yeah, I'm a little bit conflicted as to the format here because if I say I only have one episode to do it, it basically is unfair because I'm not gonna, some of those better bots, it's just not fair. I don't know how I'm supposed even within the timetable, like, okay, I'll do it for 12 hours then, right, and sit there and do it the whole time, but it won't be an issue for a while. And imagine the problem we're in is that, I want to hear their stupid commentary bubbles of what they say, right? And it's unbelievable that this would actually be the issue. And the other issue is you can't even analyze these games, but I guess I could just enter the same position. And like even as we look at this, the order of the moves won't really show, or it wouldn't be entered properly. And this, oh shit, I dropped it. It wouldn't be entered properly in this context. And the reason why it wouldn't be entered properly is because I just had to create a custom position. So that is one problem. So out of respect for this one, this is what I hate. Like, why does it have to? This is such a fun format to do, but I'll play through this game as it was from this position, but then I'll play it again just for the sake of showing, like, okay, we get to see his commentary. And then in the future, I'm not really sure because, again, I could try to squeeze them into one episode, but again, the whole essence was that I was trying not to do that because some of these are going to be unfair. Like, what do you want me to do? Beat Judith Polgar when I only have an hour? Like, I don't know. It won't be an issue for a while, but we are going to get some tougher ones as we go. I guess with those, I just won't care about the commentary. Like, even though that's the whole point, you're trying to give what little stupid personality that these bots do have. I think that sort of ruins it. I can try to figure out another way to do it, but yeah, we'll play through this game, and then, like I said, we'll beat him again just to see the commentary because it won't, unless there is a way that it does show it, but I don't think so because I was kind of testing it just to see. Like, let me see. Go a hint, new position, this. It's not even like I want them to give me hints. It's just like assistant settings. Right, it'll do the bot like based on the level, but it won't do it won't show you. Yeah, like who the fuck eats on stream though? It's such a cringe, stupid thing to do. I'm sort of mocking the idea. Or I shouldn't do it like this though in the future, like where I'm actually hungry and I waited to eat to do this, because then it'll make it take too long. I should just eat like one piece of it. But that is like a time sensitive thing, because like, oh, I just had to, that's the one disadvantage it had. I had to rewarm it in the microwave because I didn't eat it right away when I got it. And so now that kind of hurts it. Like, oh, it would be worse than it already is, right? So you're holding that against it, but it's actually not very good to begin with. But it's one of those kind of budget foods that you just settle for because it's cheap, right? You don't have a choice, or it's just kind of convenient, not that it's actually good. So yeah, we'll go through this position, we'll beat this guy, then I'll rush through and you know, just to see the comment. Like, how am I supposed to do it? Let's mull over this while I finish fucking eating this. Like, if we can't see the commentary, then how would I? Because it's not even that, oh, I need their hints. Like, oh, they're gonna try to help me. It's more that it's gonna be a position where it's gonna be a position where you're basically put in a spot to have to just see sort of the flavor, right? So we played the Madam Murder. I keep calling her, but she was actually like Madam something else. It was just like during the whole murder mystery, whatever gimmick they were doing, like in March, right? Then in April, they had done the Generations one, right, which we're still in now. So I had done the Boomer guy, and then I listened to the OK Boomer song at the end to sort of celebrate. Right, so those were two very good instructive games, even though they were low-rated boss that I was sort of cherry-picking, and even though they were both in the category that I'm now going to skip, right, it's still a case where, it's still a case where you're able to, you know, enjoy whatever shitty commentary they have. Unless there was a way I could, like, simulate the commentary that they'd be doing as I'm doing it, right? But if you create a custom position, then that won't be the case. So it almost ruins the whole format, because the bots are ultimately just like, yes, you're still playing it, but I did want the commentary. Like, fuck. So we were in this position, and he had said, this is so dumb, actually. We were in this position, and he had said, like, oh, you should develop your pieces. So even this 400 bot, who this one is sort of meant to be helpful because he's kind of like smurfing, right? He's obviously much better than what this rating would show. The thing is that he's like, he didn't like this move, but I couldn't find a way really not to rationalize it. It's like we're trying to. There was something specific I was trying to do, and now I can't remember what it was. I don't know. Like, why did I make that pawn move? I can't remember my own thing. You know, for a lot of these, I could easily fit it into one episode too, but I'm just trying to make it like even super more instructive. So I guess that's fine. You could hear the commentary during the first part, and then I would just continue it without it, even though, fuck, I don't know. But it does seem stupid to do that too, like over the course of literally weeks, right? Or like, how would I get it to even keep that then? Like, let me see. Chess.com, save bot game, but then it won't actually work, right? It'll still. I know that I can download, but I'd rather have a corner somewhere memorable game against the computer. Even if you save it, it'll just save the position, right? Stop saving my bot games. Can I save my games against the computer? You have a computer game you want to remember later. Save game, but that'll only be once it's over, I suppose. Or like, you can download it. this is such a gimmick fucking thing that I'm doing anyway in the first place. Like, oh, you know, haha, just because they give the bot a name, like, oh, all of a sudden it's mittens. Like, it's the same shit that you're playing all the time anyway. It's just like people are suckers for stuff like that. So here we get to I'm trying to remember why I was doing this, because like it's not something I normally do, right? But I was white and I haven't changed the position on the board. And one thing is also an integrity issue, like where you're in a position like yeah, ASMR mukbang. Fuck, I'll pass it on as that. But no, next time if I do it, I'll review something, but I won't actually eat the whole thing. I'll just like have a piece. Like I would have already eaten, and then I would just do it for the sake of the review. I didn't think about how long it would take to actually do this, but and I don't want it to show the evaluation either. Like this is completely not gonna work, right? I'll do it just for this game, but like I said, I'll play him again after just to keep it authentic and to see his whatever he has to say. I guess what I could do, honestly, I'd have to do it on like some other computer, and since it's only chess, I guess I could. So this is what I'll actually have to do. I'll have to dedicate a computer and leave it there all the time with the game going on this account that I don't. That would be fucking hilarious. Like I'll have to buy a new computer and leave it on all the time with the game open, and then it'll probably idle out and still kick me out. But if it doesn't, then I could have this open, you know, the whole time, and then just continue playing the next week, and just start the stream on there. So that unironically could be the only way to do it. But again, I'll try to do one episode per bot for now, and then when we get to the really tough ones, I could consider doing something like that. And remember, the only reason I'd have to do that is just because of the fucking commentary. So why did I do this with the knight? I can't even remember my own logic behind my moves. He moved the rook there oddly to g8, right? For seemingly no reason at all. Right, so let's just digest this position again. The integrity issue is that like it's in between the time of playing the last episode and now. I haven't looked at this position. I haven't, you know, thought about it. I haven't like studied it or looked it up in the engine or anything like that. Right, so in tougher matchups, it'll be like I still have to sit here and try to come up with it and figure it out. It's not going to be a case where I try to you know, obviously cheat in between, although arguably the whole point of correspondence is you can kind of do that, right? Nobody's gonna be able to catch you, or nobody's gonna know. Like, what, you go through the whole day and you can't possibly think about it or have all that time to calculate or whatever, right? You could use a piece of paper, you could consult the engine. Like, there's no way you're gonna really regulate that part, so it's still going to be very difficult to do that. So let me think about it. Why did we even do this sequence of moves? I'm trying to remember. Why would I put the knight there? I think I took his pawn, that's why. Right, we took a pawn of his, which, wait. Oh, I see. We fucked up even the position that I created. This pawn is gone, right? I'll have to go back and recreate the position again. So you have to go to learn, then you can't even see it now, but you have to go to learn, you have to go to analysis. Let me get rid of this stupid plate. Yeah, that was a dumb thing to do, but it's just my sort of hatred and mocking a face cam. Like, this is what you get. This is what people like to do. Okay, here we go. You go here, and then you go again. I don't even remember the order of the moves. They really don't make this very user friendly. Imagine if you were subscribed to premium, which I would actually have to do. You got to create a custom. Oh my god. You got to create a custom position. Okay, set up position. So now you could do whatever you want with this, and you could basically put, like, let's just put the knight there, and then let's just get rid of this, and then let's just put the pawn like this. It would make more sense if you saw the whole way that it played out. I guess I could just re-watch my shit because this site is actually garbage. Like, even for some gimmick little mechanic like this where, you know, you're trying to appreciate the bots and whatever, and it's like you get to try to appreciate their personality and stuff, but you can't analyze the game, and you can't save the game, and you can't continue the game, and you can't get to hear their commentary and like all this kind of stuff. Like, why not? You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole draw of it, and you don't get to do it. And I may have found out why my stream kept, or like why that bug kept happening. It was sort of happening even today, but then it suddenly stopped. But I downloaded like all my VODs, right, earlier off of my Twitch. Right, you log into Twitch and then you download them one by one. And then after that, I think it's typically when I do that, then after when I try to log in again later to try to stream, then it doesn't actually work. So maybe I should wait and try to download those after. Okay, so now we're actually going to try to do this. So we'll do, oh no, we have to actually choose who we're playing against though. And again, I don't want to see this kind of ruins it. Like, honestly, this sucks. But no, I'll try maybe that there. You just leave this open all the time. Leave the bot game open for literally a week until you play again. And the reason why that would work, actually, unironically, is because you would still have the commentary, because it would be the same. So I'd have one computer just dedicated to that, and even as stupid as it is, and then I could just hook up the webcam to it or something, right? The problem is various things probably. If the internet goes off, oh god, it's gonna be impossible. If the internet goes off, it might not work. If the whatever, if it times you out, if something happens in some other way, right, it would fuck up. Okay, so let's finish this against the actual bot. So we were starting here. We were kind of going in order, but ultimately I get to cherry pick any order in which I want to do them. Like, just here, let me actually put my chess cursor out there too. Go here. It's almost like I should cut that part out when I edit or upload it, but actually I won't, because this is what a troll experience chess is, that it deserves this, and the whole idea of doing face cam is also the troll aspect. Okay, so here we go. Now let's actually do it. And then, like I said, I'll play him even again. So the whole rationale here with the position was what? I moved the pawn there, right? I moved the pawn to d3. Wait. I don't understand the sequence of moves. Like, why would I have done this? The point is, I went to d3 to cover that pawn instead of moving the bishop to like c4, what you're normally supposed to do. So that's where even this 400 rated bot is talking shit to me, saying, oh, you should move your pieces at this stage in the game, right? You should move your pieces at this stage in the game. In other words, try to develop. This is not something I normally do either. Right, so now let's try to rationalize, like, okay, what should we do now? We could just ignore the knight, right? So I was doing like a process of elimination calculation style and all kinds of elaborate stuff that I was trying to take this super seriously, right? So what can you possibly move? You wouldn't want to move any of these pawns, right, on the outside. Your main goal here, let's use a logical razor here and say, okay, we're trying to develop. Developing is the only thing that matters. Right, so we want to develop either the dark square bishop, the knight on the queen side, or the bishop. You're also trying to castle, so the logical thing is, okay, you only have one piece to move, the bishop, and you want to develop it so you can castle. It's pretty simple, right? The only other piece you would be concerned about that's already out there and active is the knight. Right, you'd be concerned about the knight, but not really, because in this case, it can go back. The reason why you would be concerned about it, though, arguably, is if the position was a little different, right? Like, so for example, if that pawn wasn't there, then the queen could come here and pin it down to the king, and that's a position that I'm not too comfortable or familiar with, which is maybe part of the reason why I did that. Arguably the alternative that's even, what the fuck is going on with that? Arguably the alternative that's actually even better is the fact that you would have gone here with the bishop. You would have gone to d3 with the bishop. And the reason why you would do that is because you would do it because it would effectively do the same thing, where you're still covering there, but you're still covering that pawn, but you're also developing the bishop so that you could have castled sooner. So that might have been a better move with the same idea in mind, right? Aside from that, Right now, if he attacks the knight, at least I can go back and I don't have to worry about the safety of the e4 pawn. That would be the one intricacy of that position. So already I think I've screwed up and I've done something that this whole style of me playing is supposed to try to subvert, which is the idea of basically you know, thinking everything through to an extreme where like you are coming up with some pretty strong justification and rationalization for every move that you're making. So the move here is just and I will use the arrows a little bit, but not so much to help me calculate, just to actually like, see, I should use this opportunity to try to learn that element. Right, but now we're in a hurry because we want to actually see the commentary. Fuck. The whole point is to show what a slow, monotonous, boring, drawish, kind of annoying game that chess can be. So based on the two logical razors, you want to develop pieces and you want to castle. The only logical move here probably is you want to go bishop to e2. So not to belabor the point too much, that's fine. Then you set up to try to castle. The knight can still escape. The only reason why you wouldn't typically do that is because bishop e2 is played, and again, we're going to have the analysis to actually cheat on us here, but and it's even showing you like maybe what the line is and stuff. Right, but he goes ahead, he pushes the pawn twice. Now that's actually, or no, he already had moved it once. So the few core mistakes that you can learn from him, though, if you're an even worse player than me or whatever, right, all due respect, it's like he's moving the same pieces multiple times in the opening, like that pawn, for example, but he's also moving pieces that have nothing to do with anything. Like he moved the rook there to g8. Like, what did that have to do with the position? It prevents you from even castling. So again, you don't have to be a good player to know these things. It's like, you know what I mean? Like what he's doing, he couldn't explain. You couldn't explain why you moved the rook to g8, right? At least I'm explaining like, okay, I'm doing this to try to castle. I'm doing this to try to develop, like just basic things, right? That you don't even have to be studied in the game to really know. So like, for example, that move right there that he did, it doesn't help him develop. It doesn't help him castle. It doesn't threaten anything for me. It doesn't do anything. It does nothing. So like, you can't explain that move. So now I would just continue with the same line of reasoning. I would just castle. There's one move that is kind of valuable to me. I get disqualified by the touch piece rule, right? Fuck, I can't touch it and then not move it. Would be the pin down here with the bishop. Now, the reason why that's such a strong move is because of the simple fact that that is a strong move. And the reason why is because, you know, pins can be very hard to deal with and you can exploit it. And think about it. Well, I guess whatever. I'll let the position speak for itself. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically pins are one of my big weaknesses. Now, the line that normally happens is, okay, let's say the bishop is outside, right? So my bishop's here, right? The bishop is here, and then my knight is here, and then his bishop is here, right? And so I didn't push this pawn to stop it. So now in this position, think about what that means, right? The bishop is here pinning the knight to the queen. Now, there's one problem with this position. There's nothing you can do to ever cover that knight, right? Aside from, I guess, move this knight here, but that's not normally something you want to do. Right, so assuming the knight is already developed too, right, there's no way you can ever cover that knight. Right, so now it's pinned, and if he takes it, you take with the queen. So if you move the queen away to say, okay, I'll move the queen away to unpin it, what happens? He takes it, and then it double stacks the pawn and opens the king. Right, so now you feel like, oh, I have to keep it pinned, right, self-pinning for immortality, like Ding Liren, but like, you have to do it, but if you do it, then not only are you pinned and you could open yourself up to a double attack, but the problem is, again, what can you use to cover it, right? The knight's already developed here, so it can't cover it. The bishop's already outside the pawns, which is the correct way to play with the bishop, which I'm not actually doing here, right? Which is already kind of a screw up on my part. And so that you can't do either. So there's nothing you can do. You'd have to like bring the rook out here and then bring the rook up there, and like that's not a natural sequence of moves. Now what you are actually supposed to do is, okay, you can still push it out, and then he goes sits here, and then you can go here, right? This is just my personal preference now coming into play, like where I would say I don't like that position because it feels like you're overextending too much, and you're moving the king pawns too much. But technically what I'm showing you here, where the pawns would be like this and this and the bishop would be there, that's perfectly okay in the engine, because we've seen that a million times where it's okay to play that. It's completely a draw, it's completely even, you're not losing because of doing it. But what you are is in a very uncomfortable position that you have to at least acknowledge at this level of play. Like my amateur style is not going to be something I'm really comfortable with doing, right? I don't know why anybody would want to play like that, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad to do it. Right? It's just very unnatural, sort of robotic thing that you kind of have to know exactly what you're doing, which is a lot of what the engine will show you. It's good if you know exactly what you're doing. The problem is you're not going to know how to play that position, especially under time duress and things like that. So the natural move here should be the castle, but just to point out the fact that the pins do typically bother me, I'm going to end up having to feel like I'm rushing this, which is exactly what it's not supposed to do, right? I'm trying to show something with the game that this is the right way to play it, or the right way to try to learn it, even against a 400 rated bot, because that's the whole expression, right? Play the position, not the player. So it doesn't matter that it's a 400 rated bot. This could be the best player ever. Of course, the position would be vastly different. But then again, he is sort of trolling too. Like, we're both smurfing. I'm smurfing as a 1200, even though I'm more like 1500. He's smurfing as a 400, even though he's probably like 2500 or whatever, 2400. So now he goes to there. He goes pawn to d6. And so now he's attacking the knight. Now, that's not a big deal at all, but it does open up at least one logical sequence of moves. So see, this is a good, easy move to make that I won't have to calculate for like a long time or ramble on like I've been doing. This is a simple move because it's like, okay, your knight's under threat, so the only thing you can do is just move the knight, right? And you can already see you can't move it. Like, I'm really doing it as if, like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I'm explaining it to an idiot or something like that, but that's fine. We're all idiots when it comes to chess. Like, so you can't go to any of those squares because you get captured, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. Self-explanatory. So now you could go here, which is adequately covered. You could go there. You can't go there because your own pawn blocks it. And so you have three spots to go to. So let's use my process of elimination technique again, right? So the best move is going to be f3. I'm just going to tell you that, but let's try to understand a little bit why. You don't go to c4. Why don't you go to c4? Because then he could potentially at least push it out even further. So this is what you have to be aware of with the knight at the beginning of a game, is like, it's a very easy piece to push around and he can't fight back. So he'll just kind of keep giving it the runaround, and then you'll just have to move it again, and you give him sort of pre-pawn development. It's arguable that, oh, maybe that pawn move isn't good, so you know he's not going to do it, because in an advanced positional understanding, oh, having the black pawn on b5 isn't worth pushing out the knight, because it's actually going to be worse for you later. But without getting into the nuances of whether that's true or not, right, the point is it gives him an extra additional threat to do. So we're not actually going to do that, right? So we're not going to do that one. So now we're left with two positions left. And I'm trying to do the arrow with my little touchpad, so it's a little bit difficult. Okay, here. So now why between these two, you could argue the same thing. Again, it's unlikely he'd want to move the pawn there to threaten it, but at least he has the option to. If I go here, right, so that's all it is. It's just reducing the number of potential threats. Now, if I go here, he only has one threat. He can bring the bishop to pin it, which is not so bad because we're double covering it. We have the bishop there. But arguably for me, normally, if my bishop wasn't in this unusual position, and if it was normally outside the pawns, although I guess normally my knight wouldn't be there either, then I would feel genuinely uncomfortable, although it would still be the best move to go to f3, right? I would be worried, like, oh, I'm walking myself into a pin, and it's too late to move the pawn, right? So you have no choice really but to go there. But this unusual bishop position is the only thing that makes me feel comfortable with it, right? Because this is the big deal. The fact that the bishop is here means that the queen is not pinned, right? So you're pinning it to a bishop, which is perfectly fine, because then even if I move the knight somewhere, not that I can move it from there, he would just take the bishop and then I would cover it and it's fine, right? It's no big deal. Or you put yourself in a position where you could simply move the queen away wherever you want, and then you're still covering the knight, so you don't have to worry about that quite as much. So we'll go back to here, right? That seems like a pretty obvious move. Now he moves the queen there. So you go to b6 with the queen. right? So what does that open up? Sometimes I was forgetting to make the moves actually there too. See, it's no fun without the little stupid one-line RP commentary like that boomer talking about some band he listened to when he was a kid. The thing here is you basically get to, I can't tell if you can see this side entirely, right? I feel like you can, but I don't know. It's a little bit of a scuffed position, certainly scuffed board, scuffed setup, scuffed webcam, everything. So now that move doesn't seem to threaten anything at all, right? There's no rhyme or reason to it. The only thing it does is it discourages the development of my Darksphere Bishop, because if I move it out here, let's say to whatever, it's not even a pin anymore, but whatever I do with that, you would be able to take the pawn and then also attack the rook, which would create a whole series of awkward situations. So you could either raise the pawn, you could either develop the knight, or you could either, those are probably the two main things that would make sense, right? You develop the knight can't be pushed out by anything right from there, so you're in a fine, safe spot. And you're also in a position where, again, the pawn is still safe on b2 for now. And then the thing is, you're probably going to have to raise the pawn anyway, no matter what. But just for the sake of development, like we'd say, okay, we'll make a developing move first, and then we can always raise this, like, let's say, later. Right, we can't develop the bishop, so really the only two moves are either move the pawn or develop a piece. So I'll prioritize still developing a piece. Again, the two logical razors in the beginning of the game try to either develop or try to castle, or try to do both. Okay, so now he moves the knight to h6 or a6, sorry. Even though the notation is written there, and even on my board, I am not the best at memorizing it. Okay, so it just doesn't feel like a necessary element, because I'm not really thinking about notation during the course of a game, right? Whether I'm playing well or not, like, it's more like just to learn the stuff, or like, do GMs really think about, oh, h6 when they're in the middle of a game and calculating? They know what h6 is, they know what h6 means, but they would already know kind of what square they're thinking about. It's just more so a way to communicate it to other people, right? Or to read a book and to learn about it that way and to discuss it. So that part I can understand, but okay, so again, let's analyze too why that's a bad move, or let's analyze his last move. His last move was bad, and the reason why it's bad is because he's moving the queen too much in the early game, and normally that's not a good thing to do. He still hasn't castled, which he can't even do on the king side. He still hasn't finished developing, so there's no reason to move the queen there unless you have something really good, which you obviously don't at all. And then here, you're moving the knight to the edge of the board. You typically want to move it towards the center, although I can understand there are certain times where that's fine to do. It's just like you're in a position of not being able to, like, for example, even under the same logic, right? You could have just gone there. That would have been better. Go to c6, right? So if you're not sure what to do as black, just sometimes copy what white does. I just moved my knight to c3, so why not move yours to c6, even if you have no idea what you're doing? It's like that little magic trick, Darren Brown or somebody, he'll play a simul, and he'll copy everyone else's moves, and therefore draw everybody, because, he's just doing what they're doing, but it's not, I still don't really get how that works, though, because in a normal situation, you wouldn't be able to see, I don't know. It's going in the wrong order. Like, he should have to move first, and then it wouldn't work if you're going as white, or if you're going first, or couldn't somebody just do some vastly unpredictable move just to throw you off, and then, but I guess, I don't know, it just seems stupid, but so yeah, that's a bad move because he's moving the knight to the edge of the board. The queen move is unnecessary and superfluous in the beginning. Don't even move the queen at all until you're finished developing or castling. Always castle king side, because castling queen side is for clowns like me as a kid, but basically it's never good. Don't ever do it. That's an objectively true thing to say, because basically the few times it's going to be good are not even worth worrying about right at this low level. Just, it's going to get you in more trouble than it's worth. So now for me, I could think of, again, you want to develop your final piece, the bishop, right? That is a fair consideration. The only problem is that you're in a position of being able to not move it, because if you move it, then you lose the pawn. So probably the pawn is a priority. Now, this is a hard move maybe to justify because, oh, you want to develop, but then why would you move a pawn instead of developing? But you have to. So you have either one of two moves then, I suppose. You could either go to b1 with that, or you could go to b3 with this. Now, why would you move the pawn rather than the rook? And the reason why is because, okay, let's consider his next immediate move could be he goes here, and now he's attacking this, right? So now it undoes my whole thing because, oh, I put the rook there, so now the rook no longer covers on A2, and so now I'd have to, I guess I could raise the pawn then. I could go to A3, and that would actually be okay. Right, so it wouldn't be the end of the world, but just somehow you got to decide what sort of pawn structure you have. And I always veer in the direction of these like V-shaped things, which aren't arguably the greatest, but let's say you want the pawns to be nice and beautiful and symmetrical like that. The alternative pawn position can be like this, and then what we have already here, right? And that's complemented by the bishop pair, because one bishop is sitting here covering that, and then the other bishop can be sitting here both covering and being covered by that, right? And so that makes sense. But since our bishops aren't in that position, I will veer in the direction of doing this. And the only weakness of this you can see is that you can potentially get pinned by the thing here into the rook. But that's not going to happen because his bishop isn't even developed. So again, in a properly played game, this might go very differently. Again, it's not that I couldn't play much faster and I couldn't beat this bot with ease, but it's just not the way that I'm trying to do it. And again, we're going to have to pay the same amount of respect as we go forward to some of these 2,000 plus opponents. Of course, we can always escape with our life with a draw because that counts technically as moving on to the next one, right? That effectively is a win for the purpose of this because you're trying to mostly just survive. And so in this context, we get to move the bishop to b2, right, would be a logical move to make. So let's consider the bishop moves now. Now you can move the bishop wherever you want, right, on either of these diagonals that you have. So there is some good consideration here. And this is almost an unintuitive move because, okay, why don't you go to b3? You don't go to b3 because it's kind of even hard to explain. The best move is probably going to be b2 because you'll end up having a diagonal going towards the king, right, if you do that for later on in the game, right? That's a good diagonal to have. b2 is just a good square for the bishop to be on, right? Even if I don't often take advantage of it, or even if I don't understand it entirely myself, because again, I'm not that good, but that really would be the best move. At least I know that much. But you don't go to b3 because it prevents the other pawn from moving on a2, and you kind of want to move it maybe. You want to get it to a4 with this little V shape that I'm going for, perhaps, or it's just not as good of a position for the bishop. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. Like, his pawns are blocking the diagonal, but even that doesn't matter. How would I really rationalize? Like you're trying to attack the king side with the bishop, even though he's not gonna castle at all. So it almost doesn't even matter, right? This guy's playing like even a bigger clown than me, so it makes it impossible for me to even explain what's happening. But if you go here, right, you are attacking the king side. Now let's consider the other moves on the other diagonal. If you go here, this is a nice sort of safe passive move. It covers this, everything is fine. I guess this also prevents the pin issue from happening, but it really doesn't. Because if you were to still move the knight then, you're still not covered. So you have to always remember this position, right? If you ever put the bishop here, right, in the normal stationary starting position of the bishop, or of the rook, then you're never covered. So you always have to remember that you have to go out of your way, and then you'll move to like here. So these are like natural moves you might make here. You'll go there to cover the bishop with the rook. You'll go there to extend the pawn structure as far as you can. And I might be satisfied in keeping it there. But the whole principle behind the V shape here is my own little prognostication that is not always good, and it just depends. But why does this work so well? Because you have one anchor pawn. So for example, you bring a rook to cover it, and it's like, why would I waste my time letting the rook cover a pawn? It's because that pawn covers two on each side, so you're covering 5 pawns with one piece, basically, right? Whereas if you did it any other way, even the way that sometimes is good, like like this, right? Yes, you have the bishop there to cover it theoretically, but you have two anchor pawns, right? You have an anchor pawn here that covers this, then you have an anchor pawn here that covers these two. So you have two split anchor pawns. So the principle behind that isn't completely bad, right? That I operate under. The only point is that that assumes that the bishops are there, right, to cover them. Then if you have the two anchor pawns, it's perfectly fine. So now in this case, again, you could go to a4, which is a natural move to make, but it's not a developing move, so we'll discount that. Then you could go here, which it technically is a developing move. And again, even if he comes here, you don't necessarily want the pawn there. So let's just wait on that for now. So we'll make the natural developing move to try to attack the king side. But let's actually consider the bishop diagonals on the other side, right? See, what this does is it shows you some sort of deeper level of what you're treating the game as, right? Basically what you're doing is you're following Magnus's advice from that one clip where he said to sit at the board and play with yourself, right? That he got memed for. But basically, you're trying to do it in such a way that you're trying to just you're trying to just look at the game in and of itself, right? Nothing else matters. So you're trying to think everything through and right understand it for yourself and things like that. So it doesn't matter really what you're doing. Oh, you're playing this gimmicky little bot, or you're sitting here doing it on stream, or you're thinking about it for so long and like, oh, it's just a stupid position. But all these things are like you're trying to do it in the most I don't know, just the most thorough way possible, so you get to the core of what the game is actually about, so you understand it a little better, instead of just doing what I always do, which is what you would do with a properly designed game, which is of course not what chess is at all. But look no further than their draw rate to try to understand that. But if it was, you understand the nature of the process. So like, oh, it's not a game that even Albert Einstein would understand naturally, and he would have to study for years and things like that, which is true. You can look at his games, he played at like a 12 to 1500 level. So again, it has nothing to do with this, and this whole egotism that people have is always very false, because it's like, it's through years of study that you're at that level, and then you have to compare yourself to your peers who are also at that level. So right, either you're the best or you're nobody. But there's these, again, fake elitists who king of the sandcastle effect, like, oh, I'm going to study for years and then brag and show off to all these people who haven't done that. Like, if they studied for as long as you, maybe they'd be just as good, or maybe they'd be better. And that's not even a cop out, but it's like, it's just a priority, right? It depends how much it really matters to you. And again, it's the person treating it as a game that they play. Oh, they come home from work and they just want to play a game of it, versus, oh, they do it as a career, right? Effectively. And that's how they treat it. They study it. They do it as a job. They do it as like it's school. Like they're going to college for it, do a 4-year course on opening theory and all this kind of shit. Like, so all those fallacies definitely do exist. I'm not too happy with the setup, actually. Holy shit. I can't tell whether you can really see these things or not, actually. I'm going to assume you can, but okay, so why don't we go to any of these diagonals? Again, this is like a passive move. You're kind of not attacking a particular right side, but under a certain logical razor, it would make sense, because, oh, the bishops are better in the middle of the board because they have kind of more diagonal going. But this one is kind of cute because you'd be sort of pinning this to the queen. Like none of these are bad moves, really. There's nothing to pin the knight to. This one you can't do, obviously. This would actually be a legitimate move to make, though. Like, going here, you have a good diagonal on both sides. Going here, you're pinning the queen. Going here, you're pinning the rook. So, like, none of those are bad moves. But again, you should always just go for the base fundamental thing and not worry about all that, because, you know what I mean? Like, just do the safe thing every time. And that's what opening theory is all about, because it's just like a settled science. So like, don't even question it. This is the best position for the bishop to be in, so just do it blindly, because that's fun, right? So now he goes to here. So again, he's developed his bishop better than mine, arguably, my light square bishop. But the whole point here is you basically get to you basically get to put yourself in a position where you're able to Okay, now the middle game officially begins. Basically, we're both developed, almost. I mean, he still hasn't developed his Dark Sword Bishop. So now what would be a natural move to make here, right? And basically what I'm doing with this is like I treat it like it's a tournament setting. So like if I lose this game, I lose FIDE rating or I gain it. And you might say, well, you're not going to play against a 400 rated player, but you are going to play against a pretty low rated players there, right? There are 1,000 rated FIDE players. There are, 1,500. So like it's not always as high level as people assume. I always consider it like that would be a waste of time. Like why would I bother going to an event if that's going to be the case? But if it's going to be so low rated, but whatever. So in this case, you would, everything's good. So you almost want to move the knight. See, there's a few things you want to do. You want to say, okay, let's move the knight so that we can use the diagonal of the bishop. Let's move the pawn so we can just have that pawn structure that I want, which maybe isn't even that good. Let's move the rook so we get it where we want to cover the anchor. Or let's move the rook here to cover the bishop, right? All these kind of things. So we can immediately discount this one, right? We don't want that one because the queen's already covering it, at least for now. So the rook can go here, the pawn can go here, the knight can go really nowhere, right? It has nowhere good to go. You're blocked off. This is blocking your own pieces. This is blocked. This is blocked. So there's nothing you can actually do with that, right? So the knight is discounted. Every other piece is developed effectively, right? The one thing you could do is you could stop the pin. Usually a reactive move like that is not going to be what you're really looking for, but again, the pin loses its value. If there was no bishop here and the bishop was like outside, then that might have some merit to it to actually worry about the pin a little bit more. And so now in this position, you're looking at, again, do you go here to sort of complete the pawn structure, assuming it's even that good to do, which I can't even say for sure that it is. Or you could do this if you worry about, oh, if the knight moves, then this won't be covered, which is a legitimate concern. But again, given now you're worried too much about what he's doing, but given that his bishop isn't even engaged in the game, right, this might be the logical thing to do. You're not really doing it to react to his bishop's movement, but you're doing it to whatever, like, oh, we complete this pawn structure. Okay, so now he goes here. So again, the kingside pawn pushes can sometimes be a weakness of mine, and this guy's actually playing like a lot of my opponents do, where they don't even bother to castle because, or maybe I'll save actually playing him again next time. What a fun, I mean, this is really what it is, though. It's like taking the piss just to, because again, I want to see his commentary, so we got to see, and I don't want to do it like with this analysis bar and evaluation and stuff. This is such a shitty feature, actually. Like, I don't understand why they do it like that. Just, like, again, the only way I can think of would be to do it like that. I would literally have to go out and buy a computer or some shit. I don't know how I would do that. Because, like, I didn't even do anything. All I did was log out, right? So I assumed the game would still be there because it's a correspondence game. But it's just not, because the site doesn't treat its bot games like, I don't know, anything else. So now what this leads to is, for example, you have like an unleash idea, right? Wherever you move the knight, which unfortunately there is nowhere good for it to go, right? You could attack the queen, and then he has to address the queen threat, and then in the process of doing that, I could take the knight for free because it's not covered. But then again, he could move the queen back to d8 and then cover it effectively, and also he could just take with the knight because it's the wrong spot. So where could I move the knight, right? That would be a good move that would actually allow you to take the knight for free. And the answer is there really is nowhere good to go. You could just make like a stale move, like, oh, just go to a2, and if you do that, then oh, you're attacking that, and a player of this caliber might make a mistake and just let you do that. But other than that, there's nothing really crazy going on. So, okay, now you could move the rook to cover the bishop on that square, because otherwise it's going to have no other cover. So that's at least a legitimate thought to have, right? And again, some of these things are going to be good, but you can't explain really why they're good, or again, these positions are going to be weird. So like maybe one of those 2-knight moves is actually objectively good. He would take with the knight, and then we double stack the pawn, or he would take with the bishop, or we double stack the pawn, right? So technically, you just because of that thought, like, oh, you don't, double stacks are bad, right? But the point is that even if double stacks are bad, right, some advanced position might say, oh no, it's still worth it to do that, or it's still good, or you get to protect it, or blah blah blah. It becomes a pass pawn later, something like that. The point is that you shouldn't worry about anything like that, because you should just do it in a raw sense. Like for this level, it's adequate to say, okay, double stack pawns are bad, so you wouldn't go to either of those. You could go here, and I would say, oh, it's on the outside of the board, but sometimes that's good. Like, for example, putting it here is often a decent move or an acceptable move to make. So that one's not a bad move, but it's not a necessary move, and it's almost predicated on wishful thinking that, oh, I hope he just doesn't notice that, and we take it. So probably this is the best thing I can come up with. The only other thing is we're trying to think like, oh, how can I unleash the bishop, the light square bishop, to actually be effective, because it's in sort of a claustrophobic, strange position for now, right? But I can't really figure out how to do that. There would be a sequence like, okay, you would go to h3, and then knight to h2, and see, this sort of shows you that anybody can do this if they just sit there and think long enough. I mean, and I'm even doing it slower than what I could do, just because I'm going so exhaustively and trying to explain it and whatever, but like... So the only difference is it becomes faster, and it becomes like more informed by other pieces of information. But that's why so much chance is just memory. Like once you know, oh, objectively this is the right thing to do, then you just do it, right? Just memorize it. Like it's so stupid. 75% of chance is memory. Oh, what's the other 25%? Oh, whoever goes black or white. That's my little expression that I had from like a short story that I did. So the point is that I'm going to go to b1 with the rook. And the reason why I'm going to go to b1 with the rook is because, again, you cover that. I can't say for sure why that's so good. But the only other sequence of moves I could think of is going like h3 and then h2 with the knight, right? That would be the only other thing I would do with it. You know what I could do tomorrow, since I'm doing my Switch stream? I could do a fucking Nintendo Clubhouse chess thing too, of all things. I only played like one game on there and I lost it because I was getting like so overconfident, talking trash, like, oh, this is probably some little kid, and imagine playing on this. Probably nobody's even playing it now, but yeah, I'll just be using my Switch just for the fuck of it, because that's my whatever Wednesday thing, and I've been doing like a console thing, checklist almost, where I've been going through every single console and doing something on there. So I did Rocket League on the PS5, I did Red Dead Bounty Hunter on the PS3, I did Starfield on the Xbox Series S. So like all the consoles that I have, not that you would need to do that, because you know you could play Rocket League on anything, or Starfield, but I guess Red Dead I technically had to use that because you know, it's at least on that or Xbox 360. Let's see what else we have. I guess I could do Red Dead again because it is on the Switch, which is kind of cool actually, because yeah, I'm just sad that they never put it on PC. Red Dead 1, I mean, they never put it on PC. Probably because GTA 4's port was so fucking bad that they just kind of... Yeah, maybe I won't even... I just want to hear this fucking commentary, though. For fuck's sake, dude. Isn't that the whole point of these mods? Like, you gotta give them some sense of personality. So I'll cover that with the rook, but see, now we're in the phase where it's very hard to explain things, because it's like, you know, everything is fine and I'm winning by a substantial amount, but there must be something more better that you can do with this position, because this kind of makes me tired, actually. Because, like, I'm talking so much even more than normal, and I don't know, this whole position, this whole setup is, like, uncomfortable as hell. As you can tell, at least it's very awkward. Okay, let me think. So now, in the middle game situation that you have here, you got to think about the long-term advantages that you have. The light square diagonal is not going to be very good, right? Light square bishop is a poorly developed piece by me, despite the fact that we're winning and in such a great spot. That's just courtesy of it being a 400 rated player, right? The fact of the matter is that you do not have any good situation here with the bishop, right? you do not have any good potential for it. I guess you could try to push the d4 pawn, the pawn to d4, and try to take that knight and just try to trade it off. Like this is a good instructive thing for like at least understanding bishops, right? This is a very valuable bishop that you wouldn't want to allow him to trade for, like with his knight or something, or you wouldn't want to trade it yourself. You want to actually use it and attack this side, assuming that he would have kingside castle, which again, mostly normal people will do that. And so what you have is you have the ability to say, okay, this is a good value bishop that you wouldn't want to trade. This one you'd say you'd want to trade it as soon as possible. If you could go like here and trade it for the bishop, or you could like pin something down and trade, whatever the case may be, right? You would want to do that because you just want to get rid of it as soon as you can because it's not going to be that good. And that's also how you should treat the knights. Either knight more indiscriminately, like it doesn't matter which one because they're both kind of, you know, interchangeable most of the time. Right, just unless it's like an octopus knight, which you do have an octopus knight position potentially here, right? So you have to keep that in mind. That basically just means if you don't have any pawns to push it out. But then again, even though you don't have any pawns to push it out, you could easily trade it. He could easily trade it like with his knight or with his light square bishop and things like that. So to get an actual true octopus knight is very difficult to do, just like getting a bishop pair, which would require them to both be on the same side. Like, again, with that pawn structure I was talking about before. So the point is that through all that, you realize, let's just make a safe banal move like rook to A, rook to B1, right? Which is not a particularly good move, but it's just the best you can do right now. So you're in a good position as white. In fact, you're in a much better position than I would think because it's just very... you're very much winning on the analysis, and I would never think that according to this. Like, we're not really up a piece, we're just only up a pawn, but I guess his position is just so fucking bad because he's making all these kind of clown moves. So he goes there. That doesn't have any real meaning because, again, there's just no threat there. What's the worst thing he could do with that? He could try to, you know, push that. I could easily take it. He can't even take back because it's covered by another pawn. So there's really nothing happening with that. I just have to I have to go for something here that you would say, like, we almost want to go for a trade to the extent that you can, you know, it's impossible to explain what you want to do now. Like, this is when chess actually gets enjoyable or good in any way, because it's like, I don't know. Like, for example... I'll still try to rationalize my move, but I can't really explain everything else that you wouldn't do. Like, okay, you move the knight here because now you're doing what I call like a fake fork, right? You're fake forking these two pieces. Right now, he can't use one to cover the other, which means you're guaranteed to take one or the other. The point is, though, it doesn't matter because he could easily... He'll move the rook, right, to cover it. And now if I take this, he can just take back. And if I take that, it's covered. So the point is, you're not winning anything, but just in my desire to always trade, right, that's fine. So it's not a good move, but there's also nothing I can think of that would be a good move. Maybe this would be a good move because, okay, you go here, you threaten the knight. So whenever you threaten a knight like this with a pawn push, he's obligated to take it because he would rather, you know, he could move the knight, let's say, and then I would take it. Well... It depends, I guess, but a lot of the time you feel like you have to take because you have to either move the knight and then let them take, so you may as well just take yourself because it's going to force the take. Whereas if the knight wasn't there, you could just say, okay, we'll just reinforce the pawn or we'll just let it be, and now at least I can think about it. But the fact that you're threatening something at the same time, right, it sort of forces them almost to trade or to, you know, take the pawn. So if we did that, I don't see how that would benefit me, though. Like... He would take, I would take, and then so what, right? There's nothing dominant about the knight being there. Really, the dominant knight position is this, that the other knight could potentially get to, but it just can't from this position. Like I said, I'm just going to try to liquidate and trade material, even though these middle game positions are very, very difficult to try to figure out because there's nothing super obvious. You know, think about process of elimination, like you have this move. you have this move, and you have really nothing else. There really is no other move that you would logically even try to do. I maybe would have a brief thought like, oh, we'll go here just to clear it out so that we can attack the uncovered knight there. But that's, again, that's predicated on how bad you think your opponent is, which even against properly rated opponents, you know, to me, 1500 or whatever, I would still think that and have wishful thinking, but you shouldn't really play like that. And so, again, you push the pawn. He's almost obligated to take, even if he moves the knight, it would allow me to take. So this pawn trade would occur one way or the other, right, between these two. So if he takes, it doesn't benefit me to put the knight there, right? There's nothing special that happens as a result. So we would go here to just create like a basic threat. Again, it's not really a good threat or a very inspired one. And so I can't say that that would be a move that I would be pretty confident is like not the best move, because it's just like a lazy move. He does give up the pawn, or rather, even though I'm this thorough, that's actually not true, because right, that I'm fucking blind despite how thorough I'm being. This is covered by this the whole time. So if you saw that, then you wouldn't have done that in the first place. Like, you know what I mean? So that was actually a bad move, because you're not even doing a fake fork. It's less than a fake fork. So that's one of those aimless moves. I might have been better off just going like h3 and then trying to put the knight there and then trying to push a pawn here later, right? So even there, I have like a brain dead moment. Now this opens up a pretty cute move that we were talking about earlier. This is why it's good to be early aware of those sort of threats earlier, and now you're like, okay, now we've been waiting to do this the whole game, right? So what did we talk about? We talked about attack the queen with the knight, right? And then you also attack this uncovered thing, right? The little uncover idea. And so now the one way that you could save that is, oh, let's just move the queen to cover the knight, like we said, right? Like there. But you can't do that now, because obviously the queen is out of position. So this should objectively be a great move that just wins you a piece, and you're kind of just screwed. I can't think of any way to avoid that. So now he goes into here, and this is kind of a good instructive little moment as well. He's trying to bait for the queen trade, right? But there's nothing he's threatening that is actually going to be a free take. If he takes there, I cover with the queen. If he takes there, I cover with the queen, cover with the pawn, right? So there's nothing he's threatening me with that I have to worry about, and my queen is adequately covered for a trade, right? So now here you don't take the... Wait. Well, fuck. I was going to say, here you don't take the queen, but pretend, okay, pretend his queen was covered, right? Pretend his queen was covered by like a bishop or something, right? You don't trade the queen into the queen and get the trade back. You say, okay, I'll ignore it. I'll take this free piece, and then I'll let him trade because it's fine. And then we, you know, because if you trade first, then you lose the... No, you still wouldn't even, though. You still wouldn't even lose the ability to do it, because like I would take, he would take, and then I would still be able to take. So, but whatever. Sometimes it's better not to initiate the trade, let them do it, and then you can work on doing something else, right? Even as lazy as I am, and I'm like the last person who should actually say that. But no, here you can just take it for free. So that's kind of a very interesting thing to consider. That, look, I'd love to hear his thought process really behind this. There's not much to think about really there. So now you go from a +1 to a +9, and it barely makes a difference. So how could he have been losing that badly, you know, without that? So now I would almost just say trade for the sake of trading, because you're kind of liquidating the position a little bit. So he moves the king there. Because like in this position, obviously you should just trade stuff off, because it's going to be so good that you can basically, you know, whatever advantage you have is going to be stretched out that much more. So let me try to think. Like, we could trade a number of things here. Whoops. We could trade a number of things here, right? We could take there, we could take there. We could do both back to back. We could take and give a check. So these might be valid moves to make, but let's see like how we did in the other games, whether we can find something like above and beyond as like a great threat, right? So like we go here and we're double attacking this, but he could easily cover back with the he could easily cover back with the bishop itself on the knight on like g7, right? And so the point is that that doesn't really do anything too much for me. And so what is like a destructive, because even a position like this where you're up by this much, you often won't see the best move, or you won't even look for it because you can just get away with doing whatever you want. So to a lesser degree, that's often the position I find myself in. Like I'll be up by a little bit, +1, +2, I'll be in a good position, but then I'll squander it because I get too overconfident, right? So that's the problem, is that you feel like you're just kind of taking it for granted a little bit. So this kind of advantage you'll almost never have until like the actual end game, if you get like a promotion or something like that. So this isn't really a very instructive position at all. But again, aside from simply trading like a clown and a fiend, let's say you were trying to actually use your material to attack him, what would be a good position to actually attack him from? And the answer is that you would basically say, okay, you could do a kingside pawn push, right? Because now, even though he hasn't even kingside castle, right? You would do a move like this because you're trying to get there, try to get him to open that, right? Other than that, I don't see anything crazy. So again, the only thing I'm turning down is the trade. And I'm not really being as thorough, actually, with doing this as I have been in the last couple. So I'm kind of losing the spirit of it because of how fucked up this actually is, because you can't really play the boss the way I thought or hear their commentary and stuff. So that kind of kills my immersion. So now what we would do now is, again, what he just did is completely irrelevant. Doesn't really matter. You cover there. I could just take. You can't take back. I'm not even going to worry about it. But if we push to here now, he would take, I would take, and then he can't take. And then it opens this up. So again, let's just be lazy a little bit. Not so lazy that we're trading everything, but that seems to be a fine move. And again, this guy's just a clown who blunders every piece. So like, look, dude. That's completely, so again, just take the free piece, instructive moment. You take there, he's going to check, he's going to not be able to take back with that, or he could have taken back, and then I wouldn't have taken with the knight. So now he goes away. Wait. Oh, that looked like the queen for some reason on my board. Okay, so you go to there. Now you're looking for checks. Again, you're looking for the most efficient mate or the most efficient play that you can do. Not just, oh, haha, you're winning. But you are able to take the knight now for free. But none of these moves he's doing are really necessary to do either. That's the sad part about it. So let's try to decide between the best moves here. This is what you actually have to teach yourself that nobody ever realizes, right? You have to teach yourself that discipline, that even when you're winning or even when you're in a great spot, you still have to go above and beyond, right? That's how you get these crazy mate in 15 or whatever. Not that you should be worrying about that at any low stage like this, but there is something to be said about the fact that, you know, you don't want to get complacent, or again, you're like +2, but then you turn that into a victory rather than a draw, or potentially messing it up and end up losing, like I sometimes do. So in this scenario, you would say, okay, well, you could try to threaten the rook with the pawn, and you're threatening a promotion. The problem is he can deal with it a little bit too easily, but then again, he can't really, because it would be covered still by the knight for now. Right, so you could do that. You could attack it here, but you can't really do that. You could take a free knight, which again, that's a safe enough move that you would say, why even question that? But there's probably something actually better here. You could take the pawn with either the knight or the thing. So what you're doing here is you're effectively forking, right? You have this piece hanging, but why even worry about it? Why not do this first? Right, don't take with the knight. So take this and threaten, and it's still covered by the knight. And then you can always take the thing later too, right? So he has to address this threat, and he's effectively getting forked in a very unusual way, right? A very uncommon fork. You're getting forked on a rook with a pawn, and on a uncovered knight with a bishop. Like, it's completely nonsensical. Now that attacks it into the queen, right? Which is not even a big deal, because you think about it like, there's no other way you can push that knight around. right? There's nothing you can do to it, and so you can just let the trade occur. So more importantly, what you can do is you can just simply take his rook and just ignore it, right? Because again, this would only be concerning if he could threaten the knight with something else. But as you can see, there's no such piece that exists, right? Even if the pawn was there, I thought that might actually be what he does. He tries to threaten this with the pawn, even though the bishop's no longer there pinning it. So we're going to actually leave that and not even worry about it. And now he's obligated to focus on this threat. If we take, there, that becomes a queen, and just save ourselves the trouble. We already know what or actually, I don't know, given how this fucking clown bot has played, although it's not even a bad player. So let's see what he does. He takes it with the rook. Okay, fine. But no, he's just trolling. He's just smurfing, but you don't have to smurf this hard, dude. Right, so now everything is perfectly fine. So now you could still take the knight. See, this isn't even me like, oh, I'm trying to BM or show off or something. It's like, unironically, you should still take it seriously. If I'm in an over-the-board tournament and the person doesn't resign, right, and I'm plus 18, I'm gonna sit there and think about it. Like, fuck it, let's try to find the most efficient mate, which nobody. I feel like even good players don't do that. Like, you'll be up by a queen or up by a lot, so it's like you don't even care. Like, we'll get the mate. It might not be the most efficient mate, but who cares, right? Just, it's fine. So now you can just take the uncovered knight. Not really much to think about there either. You gotta like role play, touching the two pieces together, like two wine glasses, like doing cheers or something. And then, okay, so now you even have another cover for the knight, even if the pin did become an issue. But he's doing something you should definitely not do when you're down by this much too, is he's actually trading it off. And I guess I'm taking with the bishop rather than the queen, which itself is probably not a good move, but I'm not going to take back my move. I didn't really think about that thoroughly enough. Now he moves this because you kind of want to bring the queen into the game now. So the better move actually would have been to take with the queen. Right, now the queen's gonna have to do extra work to, like, really, let's think about here. What would be the most efficient mate to possibly do? Right, and it's gonna be still pretty hard to figure out. Not that it's really important or that you need to, but, like, I would just give a check with the rook on f7, and then he can't block it, and then he goes back down to c6, or he goes up, and then I try to do it with if he goes to c8, then I give a check with the bishop. If he goes back to c6, then I try to get in there with the queen somehow. Like, it's not super clear still what you would be expected to do here, really. Right, so you're able to basically say, okay, bringing the rook into the game is a good move, right? That's a good move. If you go there, you can bring the bishop into the game too. If you go there, I mean, whatever, dude. I'm trying to be thorough, but even I'm getting kind of a little bit impatient with it now. You give a check there, you bring the rook into the game. Now you put that there. So now the thing is, you almost would want to do a move like that to try to bring the bishop in, or again, you kind of want to just bring the queen in as quickly as possible, because whatever, doesn't even matter about the pawns or anything else, like just bring the queen in. And the way that you would do that is you could basically, I don't know, I would almost go like, okay, bishop to f3, because then you can push the pawn and give a check like that, but you're still not going to mate. Look how it's still not like super obvious though. Like, there's no easy mate. You still would have to work for it a little bit. So you could put the queen on c3 and then push a pawn, and then he can't move it. And if he does try to move, I still can't do anything to like that one square on b6, right? I can't check him there either. So let's try to just get an opening seam into here then. Fuck it. Let's go here. And so what that does is it's covered by the knight and the rook, and it opens up maybe a path for the queen. So even if he takes and he double takes, which he's just completely ignoring what I'm doing, but even if he was to take and double take, he would have took with the pawn, right? He takes with the pawn, I take with the knight, he takes with the knight, I take with the rook, and so or I could take with the queen too, and that allows me to get in there. So now you do want to kind of trade as much as you can. You take here, he takes back. If he takes here, I can do kind of the same thing I was talking about. I don't know. None of this really seems like the most efficient way to really go about it, but if I take the pawn here, does that open up something really better? Right, he would take back, he would take back. If he takes back with the pawn, none of these things open anything for the queen, so now you would just be taking purely for the sake of just doing it. So I'll take, okay, the king first of all is here. I would take here. Is this position even accurate anymore? So then he would more than likely take back, obviously, with the queen, with the king. Or he, see, like, these kind of moves make no sense. You can just take it back. Like, there's no downside to doing it. Like, all things considered. You just sometimes decide to, sometimes you don't. The only time he did it with certainty was when he took the queen with the rook when I promoted, but... So now, is there some easy mating pattern you can do? And there still isn't, though. This is what's so crazy about it. So I could move the knight to, like, c3 to try to cover the pawn. Right? That would have a certain legitimacy to it. For whatever that's worth. The one thing I'm having trouble actually doing, which is shocking, is I cannot bring the queen into the game. So let's try to rectify that. But at some point, I just kind of stop even trying to rationalize what I'm doing. Like, it's just not even because, oh, I'm up by so much. It's just, it's hard to do. So we seemingly blunder a pawn, but that's not even really pertinent right now because you're just trying to go for a mate. So the best, or no, we don't even blunder it because he getting stuck to my fucking glove. Because he effectively, I could just take it, but let's not even worry about that. Let's just go to, you know, just take the pawn, give a check. That was the whole idea of basically trying to incorporate the queen into the attack, which again, I was very slow to do. As much as it's a good idea to not move the queen early, so that should certainly be a mate, but it's actually not because of this stupid ass. Because of this stupid ass. No, it is though, still. It is though, because you get, no, but he'll take the pawn itself. Somehow he'll take the pawn itself. So let's think about it. We go here with the queen, obviously he takes with the thing, with the knight. If we go here, it seems like a mate, but it's not because he'll take the pawn and actually escape. And then I still can't give a check. What the fuck? But this is effectively a mate because, like, you take with this, then whatever he does, he takes back with the thing. No, but no. But then you put the queen here, guaranteed, right? No matter what he does. So this should be a forcing mate situation. So you take the knight with the knight. Then if he takes with the pawn, I just made him. If he moves the king down, I still made him. Right? He's just made it no matter what. So this is actually the end. He takes the pawn there. And that is not actually a move that I thought of. So even here, I'm making mistakes. So you would think you should have made this move, because if I don't, then it's actually a failure of mine. But I don't understand. Like, if you go to that same square, that should be a mate, right? You go to a6, it's still a mate. It's not exactly the way I thought it would happen, right? I thought it was a little bit different, but that should be it. So let's have the final position actually on the board here. You know, I'm trying to almost do this like a story game or something. Like, it's a very big, momentous occasion, whatever. So now we'll do another game against him just to get the fucking commentary. Even though, again, I'm getting confused as to how I even want to do this, but because I won't be able to fit it into one thing. So he took it easy on me. Fuck it, we'll do it again, just out of respect for, you know, whatever, getting to hear what he has to say. But normally playing the same one twice would not be particularly good. There would be no reason really to do it. Okay, so now random, obviously challenge, and just go like that. No help of any kind, but he's trying to coach you anyway in that. And now we can do this because we were looking at the evaluation, all kind of these other stupid things. So we'll go ahead, we'll reset the board, and we have hello there, let's play a game and go over it together afterwards. No, but you're not allowed to analyze these bot games, so fuck it. E4 staking an immediate claim to the center. Okay, but I mean, I would have loved to have heard his commentary last time. Like, oh, I blundered my queen, because like that's really instructive because I'm a dumb clown. Like, what would be his perspective on that? So I normally like to keep it where the white is always on my side, but maybe I should adjust to looking at it the other way. Like I'm playing against white, so I should. But the whole board then doesn't match. You can't really do it like that, right? So you're on E8. Why couldn't you just do that? I don't even understand the basic dimension. No, whatever. I'm not going to keep turning the fucking board around and stuff, dude. So you got... D1. Again, how do you remember this? All my little Spanish teacher type tricks. You, the queen side is always 1 and A because, you know, ladies first. So ladies first is the 1, ladies first is the A, both on the queen side. And then also, you know, queens always go on the same color that they are. And then no interracial marriages in chess. Haha, some weird thing like that. I don't know what. Or only interracial marriages, however, you would remember it. Like, oh, you know, you're always on the same. I don't fucking know. I'm just trying to come up with like a way to remember it. But no, like ladies first, and then what was the other thing? Ladies first, as in 1 is going to be on the queen side, and white also moves first, so therefore the number 1 is going to be on the white side rather than 8, obviously on the queen side, or I mean on the black side. Okay, dropped a piece there, so we'll still look at it from this perspective, even though that might be a little bit confusing. I'm too lazy to keep turning the board around, I guess. So let's see. We've already beaten him technically, so only if I lost here would this actually be a weird thing to do. It would still count, I suppose, because, you know, we can't lose to any of these bots, including obviously all the best ones too. Okay, this is good. But I mean, this is really what you have to do, and this is why I don't respect chess actually at all, because this is not my way of doing things. Like, if you're gonna do all this, like study it and take it so seriously and spend so much time on it, then it's no longer impressive, because the assumption is if anybody did that, they could be just as good, right? Imagine spending as much time as even I have so far. Right, in the last 2 years I've played like at least an average of an hour a day and things like that, which might seem like a normal amount, but it's like you have to at least do that, and if anybody else does that, they'll get kind of similar results, if not better. So it kind of is self-explanatory. At some point at the highest level, sure, right, then you get to be defined by it, but this sort of mid-level has no meaning to me. Like, oh haha, I'm 1800 FIDE and I'm bragging and flexing, I'm Alex Botez or something, and it's like, it's just not the way that the game works. Like, I don't know. So he goes to E4. And, you know, fuck. All I would have to do is turn it around even, like, now. You may as well simulate this, because I don't see what the point of it is otherwise. Just because I'm too lazy, I guess, to do it, but... kind of hard to get it to fit in frame, though, sometimes. That's the problem. right? Like some of it was getting cut off on one of these episodes or something like that. And so we go here. But no, at least with the openings, I'm trying to make it instructive, but then you realize, like, oh, just study openings, and then it doesn't matter because you would never have to think that long and hard about them. But actually, that's one of my biggest one-up advantages that I always have on people in classical games. I'll sit there, I don't know openings as well as they do, so that's a difference of a couple hundred rating right there, I guess. Right? It really makes that big of a difference. And then I end up beating them because I spend 15 minutes on the opening, and I try to figure it out and deconstruct it from scratch. So then you realize, like, oh, you know, they might know them better than me, but I at least take the time to try to figure them out. So you can kind of balance that out a bit. So let's see. I'm going to go into here a little bit. You should be able to see all of it, but I honestly can't tell because the very top is like very hard for me to see myself. Like you can go in a little bit more. You don't really need to see those numbers. Right, so now the rooks are maybe getting a little bit cut off. You can see that one, I think, but I mean, maybe not. Need like a wide angle lens, fucking proper studio Hollywood quality thing. I don't know. I mean, I should double check it here. We get to show off our art again. I can use like the or no, I wouldn't even be able to see that. Yeah, I'm looking at it just on sort of like a smaller minimum. How would I be able to tell, like, whether like the top is getting cut off or not? I guess I just can't. This seems like generally the same position as it was in before, but even like that, so even part of the rook here is getting cut off. So he's gone to simply e4, which is a solid opening choice. Hello there, let's play a game and go over it afterwards. e4 staking an immediate claim to the center. Okay. So now here my whole rationalization is, normally I like to do the King's Indian thing. So you go here, you raise the pawn. But the only reason why I can't do that now, or more specifically, I just like to move the knight there, right? Save the best for last. In other words, move the shittiest piece first, aka the knight. So basically, I can't do that because then he'll just push it out with the pawn. He'll just keep going, right? And so in order to stop him from keep going and pushing out the knight and pushing it around like the garbage piece it is, you just simply block off the pawn. But any other move that he makes, pretty much, I would just have moved the knight to f6, right? And I would have completely ignored what he's doing. e5 is a smart, direct way to fight for the center. Knight f3, how will you respond? Now, this is the whole principle of mirroring them back. But then again, it's not, because see, I'm passive in this way. You could try to mirror it back, and then like he would take mine, I would take his, he could put the queen, but then if I put the queen, then he could just take mine and then cover his at the same time, right? So that sequence doesn't really work. There's other ways to do it, like we would both take and then I would cover it with a pawn or something and then do something else. But the point is, at least my natural style of play would be reactive and defensive, at least as black especially, although I'm like that kind of all the time even. So then I go here and I just simply cover it back, right? So you're kind of mirroring him back, but you're not directly mirroring him. You're mirroring him kind of on the opposite side of the board. Like you're at least addressing the threat that he's doing. So what would be the few things you could do? You could do, I'm trying to make an arrow. And cover it with the pawn, cover it with the knight, attack his. Again, you don't attack his because of that sequence I just explained, so we'll discount that one. And then we want to develop pieces rather than simply moving pawns, so we discount that one. So that's at least a good way to get to the why would you move that one in particular, right? Even though the thought process behind it is the same. And then you push this one. He seems like he's playing a lot better here. What's going on? This isn't the regular Danny, is it? Why is he actually playing good here? Nothing he's doing here is like the clown show that he did before. Move the rook to like B1 or something, or whatever that he was doing, like weird stuff like that. Although maybe this move isn't good, but it could be good if he pushes to D4. Supporting your pawn on E5 is smart. I mean, more like it's just necessary. The more squares a bishop can see, the more dangerous it is. Now, why did he say that? Why did he even say that? No bishop is even relevant here or being moved. Just a random fact about the bishop. True. The more spaces it attacks, the more spaces it attacks. That's the purpose of the piece. So now you would just continue development. I mean, it's even hard to explain. Like, the only thing I fear is the pin. So this pawn would need to be moved at some point, but because he hasn't opened that up yet. So the one thing that scares me is like, oh, what if he does this, right? Then I'm worried about getting pinned. And the reason why I'm worried about getting pinned is simply because I might have to address whatever he's doing with the pawn, but then he's also opening the bishop to the potential to pin me down at the same time, assuming that my knight is there, which again, is going to eventually be no matter what. So this is just a common good position for the bishop to be. You always want to be on like c4, c5, or f4, f5, right? Like on the other side, those are kind of just common plays things. You're attacking the king side, and you can always go back. Like, see, it's an unintuitive move because it's like, oh, you can just push me out with the pawn, right? But then you go back, then you raise this, then you go back again. So like, it's just something you just kind of have to know, not really something that's intuitive at all to the game whatsoever. What made you first start playing chess? My friend David taught me a long time ago. Who is David, I wonder? Danny Wrench David. This must be a real true story. David Winter Papers. I don't know what the story there is. But yeah, like my dad would play, so that's kind of how I started, and he was actually pretty good, but see, he never studied or did anything crazy like that either. Or I'm stupid, I should just look at my phone to see whether I can see the pieces or not. It's kind of cut off still. I don't see how I could do it any better than this. This is so stupid. This camera is just not good enough at doing this. Okay, let me see it now. The bottom maybe gets cut off a little bit. Right, but as long as the top doesn't get cut off, kind of good enough, I guess. So, let's see what we can do here. What made you first start playing chess? Do you see what I'm up to? I'm assuming nothing very threatening because you're just a clown, or actually, wait a second, dude. He's actually playing this opening fucking exactly what I'm afraid of. What the fuck? See, now he'll be free to move the bishop there to potentially pin. What is going on? Is he like adaptive AI? Like, why is he playing so good now in the opening? Something is weird about this one. So now you feel obligated to take, because if you don't take, like I would take with the pawn, he would take with the pawn, I would take with the knight, he would take with the knight, I would take with the... No, but I can't even do that. I would take, he would take, and then I can't take, right? I would take, he would take, and then I can't take. So I would take, he would take, and then you just let it go, which is not good as a pawn position, but there's really nothing you can do. Otherwise, you would just back off altogether. Then what I typically do is I give a check. All right, because now this is open, so then he has to block with a piece, and then I get basically a trade out of it, just to kind of settle that position down. And so ideally he would move the bishop there so I can get rid of the potential pin thing. A lot of this is just my own preferential treatment to say that I want to, to say that I want to just do things that I'm more concerned with, not that they're actually good or anything. Removing my attacking pawn. You take, I take. Good one. Okay, you go here, and then again, I'll give a check. Now, the reason why the check is not bad, even regardless whether you choose to trade or not, is simply because of the fact that he'll be forced to block with something, right? Because you can't just... There's no pawn to block with, so now you can always just... Okay, he blocks with the knight, I can just go back and reorient myself again to do the same thing I was doing, or if he does it with the bishop, I would take. That's kind of the rule. Even if he takes with the knight, I might still do it, but at least I have the option to maybe think about it. So I think that check is a pretty safe, reasonable play, but so far I must say he's actually playing pretty damn good in this game, and I'm surprised by that. So he comes with the knight. Now it comes to, now you check me, now you don't. Now you have to consider, like, oh, can I double attack that knight somehow And the answer is you can't, right? So I shouldn't even worry about it. You could exploit the pawn, for example, like, oh, you can attack that now because the cover is pinned, right? Like, a lot of the time here, I would just simply take. But since this is meant to be instructive, maybe I shouldn't. Like, what can you do to punish it? And the answer is he can't even move it, so it doesn't matter, right? And then you got to make a decision. If he tries to push you out, you only get one shot to take the knight, right? And of course, bishops are objectively better than knights, period, end of story. So you have to be aware of that, even though these sites actually lie about it and misrepresent the values and consider them equal, even though that's factually, objectively incorrect. And so you go back, and then as soon as you go back, he can block it with that, and then you're not going to be able to ever necessarily take it, right? So if you did want to take it, that's fine. But let's say we didn't want to take it. You don't. There's a few principles there. Like, you don't want to let him take towards the center with the pawns, or you don't want to give him whatever. Like, you don't want to trade down for a shitty knight. There's all these good reasonings behind it. So I should still just basically try to castle, and there's a few temptations at work here, right? Because we still have the bishop, we could come back here to cover and stop the pin from being effective. But the problem is, this is where the knight opens itself up in such an irritating way, right? If you go here, he takes and opens the king, right? And you don't want to allow that. You'll have to take with that, right? You go here, he can pin it down, and you just kind of have to deal with it. Like I said, you can still cover with the pawn, with the bishop, but even then it doesn't matter because he could come here with the pawn, right? And then you're screwed because you can't move it, regardless whether you have the cover there or not. And then you could come here, but again, that's kind of a claustrophobic spot that he can still pin it down, and it's just not really where you typically want it to be. The main place you want the knight to be is here. But again, the problem is that he has both the pin opportunity and the pawn push opportunity. The pawn push obviously onto e5, right? That would be a consideration. So now if you look at that, then you're also attacking the pawn that he's not covering, but you never, this is an instructive thing too, you never go for this until you've already castled, because what happens if you do this? Now he pins it down, and then that could cause all kinds of trouble for you, right? Because your king is the weak link there. So you don't want to do that necessarily at all. So what you do want to do is you want to, first of all, get this board up to par with how we want to show this, and then we're pinning without anything to actually even pin. So here's the point, right? You're ceding the center pawns to white because as black you're just at a disadvantage of one move that way. It's objectively, unfair, and just that's part of the reason why this online matchmaking on these sites isn't right, because it gives you too much of an advantage because you go into one best of one format, and that's not really how chess works in any capacity. Let's look at 2024 candidates score, right? I should have made a prediction, actually, who I thought would have won at the beginning. Like, I think Nepa's actually going to win, because you got to realize he's been in the last two, so I would still defer to that and respect it. Gukesh has done really well, though, so you couldn't help but, respect that. So Hikaru, again, is never going to win as long as he's a streamer, though. So, like, let's look at today's result. Hikaru won over Abasov, though, and he's obviously the biggest underdog. And then the rest are just draws, or they're not. Fabiano beat Alareza. So wait, where does it show you the actual score, though? Like here. Right, so 6, 6, 5.5, 5.5, Pragananda and Hikaru. Fabiano's kind of been a little bit of a disappointment because he was like everybody's favorite, or he was like Magnus's pick and stuff. Abasov shouldn't feel too bad because he's obviously the underdog. I think Alireza should feel pretty bad because, he's not that much of an underdog. Vidith started off pretty bad. I think he had a couple rough games, but he's actually stabilized. Like, he could still, right? Who would be eliminated from potentially even winning now? There's only like 2 rounds left, right? So you have to, whatever. Couldn't you just like cheese it by getting a draw like every time? Because you might think, oh no, that's not true. But even if you got a draw in every game and you didn't win a single one, right? There's been 10 rounds, so that would mean that you would already have 5 score, right? So by simply getting draws, you would still be in like, I guess you'd be in 6th place. So that's not enough. But you know what I mean? If you're never losing, you're still not setting yourself back, right? So the real problem with a loss isn't the fact that, oh no, that hurts you because you don't lose a point for it. It's just that you missed the half point that you would get from a draw, or the full point, obviously. But you'd rather just get a half point than risk losing and getting 0, right? All these weird formats that they have to do to make chess seem like a fair, balanced game that it's obviously not. Or let's look at the play. Let me make a prediction with that. I think that the Warriors will win over the Kings in the play-in, and I think that the Pelicans will win over the Lakers, even though everybody's riding the Lakers. Oh shit, I'm probably going to be wrong about that. 77-64. Oh, that one's not even started yet, though. Everybody's up, the Lakers behind. Let's see. Even if they didn't win that, though, they could have still made the playoffs because they get another chance, right? Now you check me, now you don't. So the thing is here, this is a very confusing, irritating move to make. And the reason why is because it's not intuitive at all. And the reason why it's not intuitive at all, but no, I said that Nepo is going to actually win the thing. And by my original premise, he's going to win the whole championship, even though he choked it last time, even though, you know, I'm worried about him ruining my prediction by being the one to win. I was almost hoping, please don't let it be Nepo because he clowned it up last time. It would have been one of my best predictions of all time. Psychology expert predicts that Dinglaren's going to choke and lose, but you would assume if somebody chokes at that high of a level that they're going to lose, but he did choke, but he didn't lose, so somehow they had CPR on the scene ready to bring him back. It's just utterly ridiculous how that went, but it's a perfect way to show that, like, oh, it's just not the same without Magnus, because again, you don't need to be a chess expert to see the psychological element that they kind of, in fact, you're respecting their chess ability and saying that, like, you know, they, this is such a stupid move because it's like, this is just like a dumb move. Like, okay, you're supposed to go here. And if I go here, then if he goes here, then I could take, but I still can't even do it. So think about what you're doing. You're just trying to acquiesce to the knight where you put it here. And the reason why you're trying to do that is because, okay, well, it's the best spot for the knight to be, but the problem is that he's going to raise the pawn. And if he raises the pawn to attack it, then maybe I can go here. Then he can't take with the pawn, but then he can do something else. It's like there ends up just being nowhere that it can actually go. And you might end up having to just put it back. So it makes you think, it makes you sort of tempted to say, okay, I'll move it to, I'll go knight to e7, right? But that's not a good move as far as I can tell, right? Just from memory and whatever we've seen in the openings. Even though it seems okay, it's technically not the right thing to do for whatever reason. I couldn't even explain exactly why. You get yourself pinned there, but I mean, you're going to get pinned anyway. Like, I'd be tempted, okay, let's try to stop the pin. But even if you stop the pin, look at how much I have to acquiesce to the knight. Then you go here, he can still do that. Then if I go here, he could just, you know, he could develop something in front of his king, like that. And then I have to move the knight again. And there's nowhere good to move it because of this clown show that is just the knight as a piece. Like, there's nowhere good that you're ever going to be able to go. So I genuinely can't even figure out what you would be expected to do with this position. Like, I guess you would go here, but quite frankly, that still doesn't even do anything for me because you go there to try to finally move the knight, right? But then he raises it, and then I would take, he would take. I guess it's because you could take, I don't fucking know, dude. Yeah, you could take there and then ruin the castle, right? Because this is still pinned. So here's what you would do. You would go here, then if he goes here, then I would take, he would take, I would take, he would take, and then I would take. But the problem is still, I would take, he would take, but then I can't take because then you're losing the knight for nothing. So now his pawn is still here, and then if I bring the knight, guess what happens? We do the same shit over again because now we go here, he pushes it, then I block it, and then he simply puts something in front there. Now I still have to move the queen. I have to move the knight yet again, and I guess I could do it then, I could do it then and like block the bishop, even as stupid ass as that seems to be, because this is why the knight just frustrates you, period, in the game, because all this you have to do to acquiesce to the knight. Like, I can't even figure it out as I'm looking at it for like an hour. It just doesn't make sense. Like, there's no intuitive way to deal with it. And this guy's not even going to give me the best representation of how you would, because he's simply going to play it the wrong way anyway. Although he's been playing this opening pretty fucking well, I must say. This is way above a 400 rated opening player right now. If you go here, again, you go like this. Even if I took, then I can't take, then I'd have to go here. And I guess I just live with it because I can't figure out anything beyond that. So let's move the pawn first, even though this seems dumb and it's not really my style of play to do that either. It opens up the light square bishop capability to move. A solid opening move I approve. Your knight is stuck, at least for the moment. Yeah, it's called pin, dude. Learn chess terminology. But he's not pushing out my bishop at any point here, which he could easily have done, where he simply went to pawn to a3. Now he's doing that, so all I have to do is bring the bishop to cover it would be the natural move. Now, why do you bring the bishop to cover it? The reason why you do that is because, let's consider, if you don't do that, then it would be a double stack pawn scenario, which is actually sometimes still fine to do, but it's a good way to both develop the bishop and to cover that at the same time. The problem is now, what does that do? It blocks off my whole strategy because I said, oh, haha, we get to do this. But then he pushes, takes, then I can't take. And then if he pushes again, then, or he wouldn't even have to push. I would take, he would take, and then this is being attacked. Then I can't go there because it's being blocked by the bishop, right? So you would have to assume that he's just not going to do that. And how can I guarantee that he's not going to do it, right? So I would go here. He would go there. I would take. He would take. I would take. He would take, and then I would destroy his castle. Or I would take. He would take. No. So either way, okay, this is why, this is the instructive moment of why that pawn push is actually relevant. I finally realized. You go here not because you can actually stop the pawn from still being there, but the act of doing it, at least given this very specific position, is that you'll be able to fuck up his castle and take his queen, right? Because he can't cover it with this, and then he would just have to take it with the king, right? Because either scenario that happens here, he raises the pawn, right? He raises the pawn, my knight, let's say, is there. So now I would take, and then if he takes with the pawn, I can simply take his queen, right? Because it's open because of that. Or if he takes, if I take with this and then he takes with the knight, I could still take again, which is why you also have to free this up. But you could also take again, then he's forced to take with the pawn, and then you would also do that. So I could just ignore this and double stack the pawn. If he takes that, which is arguably probably the best move to still do. Now your knight can go anywhere he wants. Good idea. I'd feel safer if your knight went away. Oh, and of course, the one thing I forgot to mention there that's instructive too is like, oh, what if, I was even almost talking myself into it. Even if he took, I could take with this, right? But that wouldn't have happened because if I didn't do this, let's say I ignored it, right? I left the bishop there. And I went here and I just ignored the thing, right? Oh, I can just take with this, right? Cover back with the pawn. But you can't because he would have done the same. Dude, he's playing at a way higher level than fucking 400. What is going on? He's playing way better than the last game anyway. This is like some sort of adaptive AI fucking trick. What is this? Alien isolation or something? So now here we're in a position where, again, you would have pinned it down, so like now it can't move, so it doesn't matter that it has a cover. He'll just take with the pawn and it's pinned to the king. So that's why that bishop move is actually so important, which I actually completely forgot altogether. So now this doesn't scare me as much though if he decides to, if I decide to put the knight here, then you go here, but then I simply take, And then if you take, I could still take, and whatever. Like the second pawn is not going to get there, so that should be reasonable. The only thing I'm afraid of now is the pin, and so I'd feel safer if your knight went away. I mean, obviously we have to fuck. Obviously now we have to just simply move the knight overall. And the problem is it's going to be very hard to figure out where to put it because it's going to be a very awkward thing. So we go ahead, we do this move, which again, it makes more sense if the knight was pinned that you would continue to still do that. So we're missing out on two things though. We can't play it over multiple episodes, even though I just tried to demonstrate that I'd be willing to do that with the last one because it was so short. I thought, okay, I'll continue it into this one, but we also don't get to show the analysis, although I could just manually analyze these positions afterwards, like, you know, I could just plug the same game into the engine or something, but now you have to move the knight. So if you go here, you're blocking the bishop's ability to escape in a way that's just awkward, and you shouldn't let that happen if the pawn pushes it out, right? You're also not gonna really want to go back to the back rank, although sometimes with a piece like the knight, you just simply have to do awkward stuff like that. I'm almost compelled to go here. You'll let yourself get pinned in a way that's just very undesirable, and there's nothing I can do about it. So again, just this opening alone will show you why the knight is just garbage and a nuisance, and I don't know why people defend it and like it so much, because you don't want to go here because it messes up the pawn. You kind of... it actually doesn't double stack it, right? So how would I justify this? Just the fact that it opens this diagonal in a way that you don't really want to do, and then covering the pawn like this is awkward, right? Because you're kind of like, you know, your king's open to the light square diagonal, so you don't necessarily want to go about it quite like that. So my whole position here is that you basically get to... the only places to move the knight that make any sense at all would be... you'd go here, but you don't want to because of the pawn. You'd go back, but that undoes your own development, which maybe is arguably still the right thing to do. You don't want to go here, but you have no choice because there's nowhere else you can go. And the whole premise behind that is that, okay, now you're going to get pinned. And so that's just frustrating, but there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, and not only are you going to get pinned, but you're going to inhibit the ability of the other knight to move. Because now if the other knight goes in and you're pinned from here with this one, guess what happens? Now he takes this one and then you open here and then you're screwed again. Like, look at this. So I actually can't figure out where you would go with the knight. Maybe the best move is actually to go back, because if you go here, right, your bishop can't go anywhere. You go there, you go there, you go there, you have to sidestep something crazy. So maybe the correct move is like, oh, just let him take that and then go here, because it's like he would take, but then I would take, but then he would still take again. Like, I don't know. So I'm actually going to go back to b8, even as dumb as that seems, because that's just the nature of the piece. Like, I can't figure it actually out. It might actually be the right move, too. You threaten my bishop, and responding to the threat would lose me time. What does that mean? This is a correspondence game, dude. There is no time. Responding to the threat would lose me time. You could have just taken and checked, and it wouldn't have cost you anything, actually. Your knight is ready to get into the game. That is kind of like an advice moment that he has there. So all this time, I haven't actually moved his bishop at all, though. I'm not showing the position accurately. I have one job with doing this, and I can't even do it. So now... yes, he's correct that my knight is ready to get in the game. That was my thought process anyway. I was just dealing with all the stupid cheeky threats that he was doing. So yeah, let's actually take his advice here. I thought this was challenge mode, where he's not supposed to give us advice, but that's just how the bot works, I suppose. That this one is just meant to do that. So now if he pushes the thing up, I'm not really too concerned about it. But again, what about the pin? So this isn't a move that I would actually normally make. You found it. You can start to think about castling. I love the tension that builds when we develop our pieces. Really. Is that a pawn in your back rank, or are you just happy to see me? So there was some clip of somebody stealing a pawn, like from a game. I can't remember who it was. Some grandmaster just puts like a pawn in their pocket from the board. Like, what the fuck are they doing? caught on camera, and then Levy has to make a video about it. Haha, so funny. This is chess in 20 whatever the fuck that year was that took place in. So yeah, if he had pinned again, you're in this uncomfortable position of I wonder what he would have said if I had done that first. I would go here first, and then I would do it, where I put it here to stop the pin from. In fact, I'll even still do it now. Right, we could castle, but I'm not going to castle. And like he could have this, he could check me there, but it wouldn't matter. So let's go here to stop the pin from happening, even though I already failed in the process of doing that, right? I'm so happy to be playing chess with you. Offering material like my pawn for free can sometimes bring other benefits, like a lead in development or more control in the center. A lead in development. Such offers we call gambits. That's an interesting way to describe it. The way I would describe it is somebody thinks they're better than they are because they saw some Levy video on YouTube and they just clown up by sacking a piece for no fucking reason. That's actually what a gambit looks like. But okay, dude. So why is this 400 rated player gambiting? And maybe he knows something I don't, but... So there I would almost have to take, and the reason, no, I don't have to. That's the beauty of it. This is a crazy kind of move opportunity that he gave me though, right? Regardless of what he does with the pawn. Oh no, he takes a dinky pawn, or he keeps going, and then whatever, right? It might bust up my position, but look at what this does. I take, and then he can't take, so then I take. If he, well, it's not actually that crazy, right? Like. I would take, and then he would take, and then I can't take. And so it wouldn't be like the check fork take that I was maybe hoping for. But it's a good thing. I mean, I don't know really what's so good about his move there, but he's going to actually do some crazy mating sequence, and I'm actually going to lose the challenge right now to a bot that I've already beaten once. Now, again, he can't take. He can't take. As your coach, I like how you responded to that threat. Do you have any ways to stop me from castling? I mean, I could take a fucking free piece and attack where your rook is going to potentially be. But other than that, I'm not sure. Like, you're just offering up a free piece because it's not covered by the thing. Right? He's teaching me the value of a pin. So you go to here. The one piece I keep forgetting to move is obviously the bishop. So I could push a pawn in front of it, which I don't really want to do, right? Obviously, you'd rather just trade it, or you'd rather just take it for free. I'm sorry. What you could do here is you could basically, okay, consider this double attack, but I'm being like sort of too patient with it, where it's like I should just do it, but it's almost like, oh no, I want to attack it again another time. So then I would hit it, and then I would be able to check and fork and take the rook, right? That's that classic position. I take here, he takes there, then I take, then I can take, or I take, and then obviously he's not going to take with the queen. So what ends up happening is just, again, take a free piece, period. And that does stop him from castling, if that answers his question. I don't really know why that's really so pertinent right now. Right you are, this prevents me from castling. Yes, of course, not the fact that I was just taking a free piece. There's a threat on the board, do you see it? No, I don't see it. What is the threat on the board? Like, just the fact of fucking taking your knight, like, I don't know. Like, normally this is not a good thing to just do, just to trade, right? But at the same time, you're double attacking it, so unless you get something from this, like, why else would you have gone through the trouble of doing it? So I could just take, and then I could take the knight, but that's what it's going to end up being, or he could do it with the pawn. Right, but then that splits his pawns also. You know, a split pawn is not as bad as a double pawn, but then they'll be in C and A file, and so they won't be good enough to... Sometimes he says things in the wrong way. Like, there's a threat on the board. What is the threat on the board that like would be new or good or anything? Oh, the fact that you can take the... You know, I can take that pawn. But see, the thing is now he can just do whatever he wants. So I have to take because I'd have to move this and address it. Right, otherwise I can't do anything at all, so... The way you're using your knights is very instructive. Bravo, recapturing. Oh, like how I spent the whole opening struggling, racking my brain, trying to figure out how they wouldn't get in my way and completely ruin my whole experience. Yeah, that's very instructive indeed, to realize that they're the biggest nuisance of a piece ever in the history of any game, except for Chaturanga, where they're actually upgraded a bit, not because they're better, but because every other piece is worse. And there's this piece called an elephant that's complete garbage. So now, this you have to move away, and the reason why you have to move it away is because obviously it's just being attacked, not a very hard thing to do. So you want to keep it in this general space, so you just simply move it back, and then you can move it back again, like to B6 again. These don't feel like intuitive moves, but once you know that they're just objectively the right thing to do, you moved your bishop out of trouble. Good. Now he stops himself from castling, even though he, yeah. See, this is a good instructive moment. This is he played the opening actually pretty well, though, I must say. This is a move that I like as a personal sort of like pet play, right? If you have the opportunity to do something like this, you do it, because it's like now he can't castle, because either he has to take with the king, thereby negating the castle, or he has to take with the rook, also negating the castle. So even though it's not a trade I would normally like to take, right, it's actually pretty good for that reason. All these sort of like little in-between things, like, oh, you trade something here, right, take the knight that's here with the bishop, and you open the king. Technically, material is still even, but now his king is in a weird spot, and he's got a double-stacked pawn. So this is similar. You're not actually up material by doing this in any way, but it just creates an awkward position for him. If I knew you were that dangerous with bishops, I would have traded them off already. And of course, I take back. Okay. This is literally a troll bot, though. Like, he's much better than what he's pretending to be, but it's almost as much as me, right? I'm also pretending to be worse than I am by doing this, right? At least I seem worse than I am. But now I can take that free pawn. Like, he's really not doing anything threatening. Like, I can just kind of do whatever I want, but so he takes with the king. That's actually hard to say which would be better to take with, the king or the rook. What you would basically do here to try to salvage it into a castling position is you would raise the pawn, right? Then you would put the king there, and then you would let the rook slide out on your back rank. So then it's basically like a castle, right? That's the kind of triangle formation pawn structure you would do anyway in that case, right? You just raise the one pawn onto g3, right? And you'd be perfectly fine. So now at this stage, you could castle, but it seems like a shame not to take that free pawn unless he has like some crazy sack play. I don't really see what the thing is. He could give it. No, he can't do anything really. I mean, I just take a free pawn. I'm getting a little bit too lax, but I mean, this is a 400 mob, but you shouldn't think like that, right? We should be bracing ourselves to face the really tougher ones that come along the way. Things are really heating up here. Now, the only thing I'll say with that is, right, even though I admit I didn't consider that or think of it or see it, and this is kind of like a telltale mistake, you do have a play here. Like if he takes, then I just simply mate him there, right? There's nothing you can do because he's leaving the light square diagonal. So even though I didn't see that, and I'm not going to pretend like I did, don't give me anything for free. But technically I'm not, because of course I'm the real Danny Wrench over here, and I'm actually that good that I saw a simple two-move calculation that anybody with half a brain should be able to see. But you're actually going to get fucking mated, so it's technically not free, right? Even if you do decide to take it. And not only is that the case, but you can also cover with this, which I also didn't think of. I just basically didn't think at all because I'm kind of just like, oh, haha, let me take a free pawn and the game's already over. But this would both cover the bishop, and then even if he took the bishop, right, we would also mate him, but whatever, we'll pay him a little bit of respect to think like, oh, he wouldn't have taken it anyway, right? But that was an objective mistake by me because I just wasn't looking. So I'm playing this one kind of way too fast, and I don't know how I'm gonna keep doing this with the fucking lack of commentary that they're gonna give me, because I don't know. So we move the knight here, we cover it back, and we block at the same time. I attack, you defend, good. I'm trying to create a weakness in your pawn structure here. Ah, I see. The old sack the queen to create a weakness in your pawn structure. You see, when I double stack this pawn onto c6, oh wow, that'll ruin me. I can't possibly let that happen. Double stacking is just the worst thing ever. Absolutely brilliant idea. He rationalizes it in such a cold way, right? Like, oh yeah, of course, that's what I'm trying to do here. Never mind the fact that I just sacked my fucking queen for no goddamn reason. You take that, but I'll be back. I've got my pawn covered. Yeah, that was an interesting whole notion. Like, oh, haha, if he takes this, I actually just made him on the back rank because his position is so weird. I've got my pawn covered, but what don't you have covered? Could it be your actual bishop itself? Like he goes full clown mode. When does that happen in his brain? He played the opening well. This is like the average 12 to 1500 rated player. They've studied opening, so they think they're good, and then they, you know, then as soon as they're out of the opening, they just fucking don't know what they're doing. So we'll go ahead. We'll obviously take that. It's hard to even make this instructive when they're this fucking stupid. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's nothing really to learn from this, but this is just like a bonus game anyway, because I was just trying to. I see you keep creating threats. Am I though, or are you creating them for me? Because you're kind of just clowning it up by giving stuff up for no reason. So if I give a check on the light square, and he goes to the dark square, then I could check and take with the bishop. But if he goes there, then I can't do anything. So I mean, I could still take a free pawn. I could take a free pawn. I could finally castle. I should almost queenside castle and just try to, you know, finish him off that way. Like, let's try to think of what the most efficient sort of mate would be. The problem is that he can always go to this G1 square, so it's still going to be pretty difficult to do. But even the act of doing that is good because it's like, since you can't go the other way, it's actually worth it to do this. And the reason why is because now you won't be able to move the other rook very easily, right? So we'll go ahead and give the check. I love your attacking mine. That's a dangerous queen. It's clearly time for my king to move. See, now you can't even move the rook, right? So we're just going to keep that there. And then we're going to we could potentially pose a back rank possibility if we simply double stack. Then we go down, he takes. Let's just go ahead. We'll take a free pawn, and we'll attack the rook itself. Just remember, part of what got me back into chess was playing classical, so it's only natural that, oh yeah, correspondence will be the way that I really progress, because I was going AFK a lot when I had come back to streaming, and so I was doing these hard modes and other things, but I could still pause it, and then in between them I would play chess, so I could play a classical 30-minute game like I was doing it on here on chess.com. And I was, you know, I could go AFK for a minute here and there, and it was fine because you could make up for it in the 30-minute context because you have enough time there. Whereas a 10-minute game would be way too short, or maybe just short enough. Great, your passed pawn could promote. I'm not even thinking about that, but one day soon. Yeah, literally one day at the rate that I fucking am playing this. Where's the safest place for your king? Why does the king? Yeah, right where it is, because it doesn't fucking matter. What do you mean? It's possible you could almost trap his stupid ass thing too. You could almost trap his stupid ass bishop, rook, or the act of simply going here with the bishop would be, yes, he could take there, but he actually can't, right? Because we get another back rank mating scenario. So you can double attack this, so you'll be guaranteed to take the pawn. You're also threatening the back rank mate. The only other thing I can think of is that we could just double stack it in such a way that we basically would guarantee it, right? So it's like, but then he would just simply move the pawn. So like, you could say, oh, this is the best, move the rook here, right? Because now you're threatening the mate, but it won't be a mate because then he'll just go like that or something, right? And then, so it's not such a short thing. So I'm actually going to go here with the bishop. I forgot, I guess, to move that pawn. We go ahead, go here, making a discovered attack on my pawn. I'm moving out of danger. But see, normally he would just take the pawn on c6. I'm surprised he didn't say that. Oh, haha. Like, he knows, but he's pretending not to know. That's the thing. Oh, haha, you blundered. You shouldn't have hung your pawn like that. That passed pawn was so valuable. It's going to promote one day soon, like I just said the comment before. But he's smart enough to know that he would have gotten mated, I guess, if he had done that. I don't know. So now, what would happen if I double stacked and just put it here? I guess he would just never take it, right? He could just leave it there until I take, and then the act of him taking would allow him to escape onto the light square like onto e2, right? Because he he would no longer be in that position. So so now what would be the most efficient way? Like, we don't even have to fucking castle because he's not doing anything, so it doesn't matter. So his other rook is trapped in there pretty much all the way. I'm thinking we should almost put the bishop onto the one square, put the bishop onto d4, and then attack that, but then he's always going to be covered by that anyway, so it almost doesn't matter. Right? Like, what would be the simplest, quickest mate here? Not that it matters, because you can just win no matter what, but if you were looking for it, right, what would be the way to go? And the way to go would be probably I don't know even. We could take that pawn, but that would have no value. I mean, part of it could be like, oh, you just actually promote, but it seems unlikely that you would have to promote here, right? You should almost be able to do whatever you want. Like, I could just create the double stack just for the heck of it. I'm kind of being very lazy now and not actually thinking these things through all the way. Pieces are more useful when they can see more squares. Nice idea. So now we should actually win the game. Because, no, but you see, he doesn't have to take. That's the difference. But no, he does. No, he doesn't. Fuck. Because, like, we go here, it's like, oh no, I blundered my queen. But if he takes, then I take and mate. But he doesn't have to take, and then I would take and mate. But then he still doesn't have to do that. He could go here, and then it's like, you know, it's like basically, it's almost like the best move could be this. You go here, and then I check, and then all you can do is block, and then I take. So actually, this is a weird queen sack play to make, right? You go here, or wait. I can never keep up on the board. You go there, so if he takes it, right, I simply back rank mate, because all you can do then is, okay, I go here, you take, then I put the thing here, and then you can only block, right? You can't do anything else. So this actually might be the right move, as insane as that seems, right? And then if you don't take, then what can you do? Because anywhere else you go, if you go there, right, then I'm going to come down and then I'm double attacking, so you have no choice but to take and then get mated. Or anywhere else you go, I'll take there. Even if you go like here, I'll still give the check with the rook, then you take, then I still take. So this objectively is the best move, I think. As ballsy and crazy as that seems. No. That was actually a misclick, but I'll count it. I mean, I'm even saying what I'm doing and what I'm thinking. Look, this game shouldn't even fucking count because I already... Whatever. I'm not even in the mood now. Fuck this guy. I won the game with that move. We get it. Just fuck you. Stupid ass fucking touchpad. Garbage. So fucking stupid. I'm not even gonna transpose the game. Like, that was the ending position. Nobody gives a shit what you do, dude. Fuck you. You can castle here. So the correct ending would have been this very cool move that that again we do here. So no matter what you do, right, that would have been a pretty badass thing, and I kind of want to almost see that. Like, I'll create that just to see it in an analysis context, just to consider what that would mean. But let's just wrap this up. I attack, you defend. I'm not even reading. Your doubled rook starts. None of this really happened, right? This is not a canon outcome. Interesting offer. Clearly time for my king to move. What are we going to get? A stalemate? Technically, we can get a stalemate because I would still win because... right, like, it would still mean that you... it would still mean that you basically get to... how the fuck is this not mate, bro? What? I'm not even reading all this because this is not technically valid. So let me create whatever. That's so fucking bullshit. I misclicked that even still. So let's look at that in analysis, what that very cool ending move would have been. And again, not the sort of position that you normally expect to see even, but you have to at least have the willingness and the offensive imagination to do that. Let's see what this position would potentially look like if you just say, okay, you got we're looking at it from white's perspective, so or would this even be the proper analysis sort of thing? This is the only way to really analyze it too, because like the rest of the position doesn't even really matter, but just looking at these few pieces here, right, it would kind of make sense. So now we go, that is my fault, obviously. I just misclicked. I shouldn't have done that like that. I don't see how that's really... these are some values that aren't even possible to happen because you can't get rid of the king and stuff. Okay, so you have rook on a1. I just kind of wanted to show the finishing thing. Okay, rook on, or sorry, h1, rook, hg1, king, and then the rook on e1. Right, then the pawns all the way down along the line to get the perfect back ranking scenario, which of course he could have easily solved that sooner by simply not fucking getting back ranked. But you put the queen here in a very ballsy sack sort of play that would piss me off actually if somebody did that to me. But this position is so fucked up that this is the kind of thing that the position would allow to happen, right? Like, don't put yourself in this position and it's perfectly fine. Like, how often do you see this kind of garbage thing happen? So all the rest of the board doesn't even really matter, but... or no, it does. It does actually, because the rook, for example, is on the D file. Some of this might actually still be wrong, right? Like maybe like, why is the king there? Or I guess it was there the whole time. I've become the very thing I swore to destroy. All these clowns who don't castle, because I feel like you never had to, because he was just completely playing like garbage. So now these are going to go h6. I have to be more careful with the clicking, or you know what I can't do is I can't use the mouse because I only have 2 USB ports on my laptop, my gaming laptop that I always stream on, and one of them is for the webcam now and one of them is for the thing, for the what is this, A7, and then you basically get to we have a double stacked pawn on the C file. Yeah, one's for the webcam and one's for the mic, so I can't even fucking do that. Yeah, we got actually a 2-for-1 Danny Rent special, but it's very, very disappointing that we can't do it really this way. I guess I could just ignore the commentary and just always hear it like later on, but it would have at least been nice to like simulate that, but you can't create the same positions because then they won't give you the commentary. Or like I said, I'd have to literally keep a computer here all the time just to on all the time in the middle of a game. But I won't worry about that yet because most of these I should be able to do in one episode just because. But see, I was kind of rushing there too. that's why I misclicked, not because, oh, that's why I actually missed a move, like whatever that bishop check thing was. Like, sure, I had the knight to block, but I wasn't really looking, or even that I had a potential back rank mate. These positions are so weird and uncommon, but because nobody's really gonna play like this. So now you get to what else is missing here? You got 1, 2, 3 pawns there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. Then you got the 3, you got the 1. So this should be the final actually closing position that we get to appreciate here. And look at this ballsy sort of sack. So what would the engine tell me about this thing? Right? What would you say would be the thing? Or even if you were to go back a move, right? Like we're double stacked. Let's see that that's actually the correct. How do we actually see this in an analysis, though? What? Load this, just show me the thing. Review, because I didn't use my free review of the day. Wait, what? How have I used my free review when I haven't done anything besides simply play the fucking bot? Oh god, eventually I will have to sign up for this shit, because the biggest challenge is to fill your ideas about yourself. Judith Polgar. What, like how she rejected being considered the best female player and didn't want to play in women's tournaments, so she decided to just play overall tournaments, which I respect a lot, because it's like she could have easily just ridden on that, but that wasn't good enough for her. Like, no, I just want to be the best player I possibly can be, not, oh, I'm just going to be the best female player, because that was like almost too easy for her just because she's just that good. But I would assume what the engine would say here is this is so dumb, like how I can't even fucking do this, but okay, let me see. Just give me some basic idea, like what would it say to do? Like, would this actually be the best move? And it probably would be, and the reason why is because, like, what can you do as white then? If you take the queen, I back rank mate you, there's nothing you can do, right? Because you can only come back to block on a square that you can still get captured from. And then if you, whatever you do, it's not going to matter. Either I take the rook and it's a mate, or even if it's not a mate, like, oh, I'll push the pawn, right? I'll push the pawn because the queen is here. Then I would still, wait, what? Won't even let me do it now. Push the pawn, but then I still just take for free, and then you move there, and then it doesn't matter at that point either, right? So it's not necessarily a mate in one situation, but again, you just simply sack the queen, because now if you go anywhere else on the back rank, I can just check with the shit. I could just check with the rook here, and then you take, and then I take, and then it's a mate, and then if you take, it's a mate. And then if you don't take it's a mate, then I simply take back. So that is a pretty badass ending, at least, which I unfortunately didn't get to do just because of my own clown clicking skills with a fucking little touchpad that I have. But yeah, so we beat him actually twice over, right, which is a little bit redundant. But let's try to plan out, like, who would be the next bot that we play next time, because I certainly don't have the energy for it right now. Yeah, then we just leave the board on this position like the whole week too, because I don't even touch it, or unless I have to use that table like for something else or whatever. Maybe I should play a game of Chaturanga or something, but I normally just only either play viewers on here, or I sometimes play variants, but other than that, I'm basically pretending like the site doesn't exist or whatever, because I've been banished off of it by my own stupidity and failing my permanent challenges over and over. So the thing here is we get to look at which bot is next, right? So we should have some visual sort of checklist that I can do. So again, these we're going to ignore for now. We did beat the boomer guy, though. So these are going to be, I can't even see what these are. Or one of them kept starting on its own. Coach May. Once you've learned the basics, you're almost supposed to do these in sequence, but I'm not necessarily going to do that either. Right? I mean, I could easily do an 800 rated bot, but I'm just saying, like, Jimmy wants to make sure you enjoy the game. Jimmy will adapt and make it a little easier, or Jimmy will try harder depending on how hard you play Jimmy, like the fucking Seinfeld. I almost thought that's what they were going to start to do. He's 600. But how adaptive is he really, dude? Martin is like one of the poster boys for it, almost to the point where, you know, I even have him on my own thing. Um, Martin learned chess that he could play with his young kids. So that he could play with his young kids. He still wins against them most of the time. I would certainly hope not. See how you stack up. 250, dude. Do you really consider that learning chess if you're 250 rating? Weirdest flex ever, but very okay. I was never 250 even when I played for the first time. Like, just by simply using your eyes and your brain, you're more than that. So again, I'll start farming these still. What is it? Itani Elani always keeps a straight face even when she loses a piece. Was it a blunder or a sneaky sacrifice? Given your 400 rating, I'm inclined to believe one rather than the other. Yeah, I mean, I could pick any of these. I don't really care. But yeah, eventually we'll have to sign up. I mean, Jaylen Brown, actually one of my favorite NBA players, but he's been a little bit unsuccessful in the playoffs, and they've choked a fucking lot of leads. 1275, so I'm actually better than him at chess. Jaylen Brown is a two-time NBA. Wait, what? You gotta update this shit. He's got to be more than two-time by now. Fact check your fucking database. There's no way he's only two-time, dude. And yeah, who even says these people played chess? Like, yeah, three-time All-Star. What a shitty site. 0 out of 10. You want me to pay for this? Creator of Bridge Program, I don't know what that is, and founder of the Juice Foundation. I don't know what that is actually either. Okay, Gordon Hayward, I guess. Gordon Hayward is an NBA All-Star basketball player, former collegiate All-American, and chess enthusiast. Do you have what it takes to school this legend of the hard? I wouldn't exactly say he's a legend of the hardwood, but he's a good, good player. Had some bad injury moments. Daryl Morey is an analytics guy, so he should be a lot better than 50-50. President of Philadelphia 76ers, co-founder of MTI Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, and a producer of the musical Small Ball. This is actually a hilarious tie-in, though, because he's so, he's one of those guys like Moneyball in baseball, right? He believes in the analytics and this and that, right, as his whole philosophy. So that's very applicable to chess with how the engine has basically taken over everybody's brain with how they interpret everything. Ray Enigma, literally me. How, like, even though you can see the board, obviously you can't see me. Benjamin Feingold, like, we would have to do all these, but we'll ease ourselves into it, and I don't think any of these reset because or like they don't change. So the only ones that will change, 2563, renowned chess educator, we've seen that. I don't even know who I would play next. Like, we can cherry pick some of these. We could adventure out to an 800. Like, we got a 250. It's not like I'm going from lowest to highest. We played a couple, 400 here, 500 here. That's at least one signature of mine. Like, the fact that, I was 1,000+ player the first time I ever played. Why? Because I literally have eyes and I have a brain, right? Like, I'm not trying to be a dick. And I even said, I should be 15 for that same reason, but obviously, clearly not, because people study openings like fucking crazy. But I'm saying you can be 1,000 just by simply using your brain. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to study anything. Like, just literally look at the board. Don't hang pieces. Like, come on. So that whole thing I don't get. Like, how is anybody sub 1,000? I'm not even trying to be mean, but it's like, I'm garbage, but yet I still was never that. You could say, it's because I played so much now, but I haven't really even improved much at all, right? Like, I would have been, I was like literally 1,700 before, right? But then these websites weren't as competitive, right? That was like on my old channel. These sites weren't as competitive because, the whole Botez effect and the whole Hikaru shit, Levy fandom and all this hadn't taken over where everybody literally thinks they're them and they're trying to RP and try hard and stuff. Yeah, next time we'll play one of these random things. Maybe this one. Maybe, yeah, we'll probably do a lot of these that are free. Although I wouldn't say all of them before I unlock the rest, because obviously you're going to be in a position where, are we gonna avoid the top players? You might think that's unfair, but I mean, we are doing this like for real. Although some of these you might think would change, like athletes, like what? Those are the only athletes who've ever played it, and you'll never change them or rotate them out. Or I guess I could do like a streamer tier list thing. Like, there's no way she's 1,000. All due respect, even maybe now she is, but even when she was playing in PogChamp, she was way less than that. So they're too generous. Like, do you really think he's a 1,200, bro? I'm not, fuck. Like, I'm higher than 1,200 now, but there's no way, bro. One of the most popular streamers in the world. Do you have what it takes to be this PogChamps alum? Let's see. Mr. B. Like, I could do that. I could like play them in order of like my least favorite to most favorite streamer or something like that. One day I'll be on here and they'll have to use that Diablo icon, or they'll have to do this. Is Ray Enigma really a creator though? Because he's just somebody who happens to wear a mask. Nobody cared who he was until he put on the mask. I don't know who even some of these people are. Ludwig, see, that's totally wrong. Ludwig is way better than XQC, right? That doesn't mean he is 1,200, but 900. QT Cinderella's streamer is she really world-class chef and creator of the Streamer Awards? Can you beat this 2-time PogChamps participants? Who is this? Box is 14. I highly doubt that. Tyler 1 I know has gotten pretty far though of his own right. Harry Mack, the freestyle rapper who played in PogChamps 4. Okay. I did actually watch some of that. Nico Lull is the OK Boomer girl. That's all you can say. Is an American TikTok icon, unironically. That's what she's known for. Yeah, let's get the Hannah Uwu up here too, playing PogChamps. Can we arrange that? Gotta beat both my nemesises of cult of personality that I always talk about. I always make fun of Hannah Uwu, not that anything personal against her, just like that'll get millions of views. Meanwhile, you carefully research something for weeks and do interviews and set up a whole elaborate thing. Oh, it gets 10 views. But just saying ooh gets millions. And then I obviously say that with Nico Lol too, and I say that with Alex Botez to some extent. It's written in Spanish there. Okay. Who else is on here? Like, who is this? El Deplorable. Who could be 2,200? Who is that? And why are you writing it in that? Sea Dog. Wasn't he a little better than that? Yeah, PogChamps 5 champion. They're so wrong with the ratings. Like, they're trying to fluff people up. Like, oh, XQC isn't better than him. If he's better than him, then why didn't he win PogChamps when Sea Dog did, when he's only 900? What kind of inaccurate bullshit is this? And I'm fact checking. Oh, Jalen Brown's a 2-time All-Star. Like, what kind of who fucking runs the site, dude? Okay, see you tomorrow.